I'm crying because I'm trying not to sob uncontrollably. Oh my god. Is it bad? Yes. Are the relationships bad? Yes. Is everybody deeply unlikable in the way that they treat each other deeply unlikable and not appropriate and abusive and like uncool and immature? Yes. Hey, my name is Kaylee. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. This is Read, Rant, Review, where, you guessed it, I read books and I do rant reviews. What does that mean exactly? I'm going to be doing a chapter by chapter, beat by beat breakdown of a book that I read recently. Today, that book is going to be The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book was published in 2017, has 389 pages, and I believe it won the 2017 best historical fiction novel on Goodreads. And speaking of Goodreads, it is currently sitting at a 4.4, which might be the highest rated book that I've done on this channel, with a whopping 3.6 million ratings. Absolutely obscene how popular that this book was in 2017, and this is still one of the books that I constantly see on the shelves at the retail stores. So I'm gonna break this down today. We're gonna go through each chapter, discuss it a little bit. I'm gonna talk all about it. In case this is some viral book that you have missed out on, you get to hang out with me and I'll tell you all about it. So with that being said, I have the same 3 disclaimers that I have on all of my videos. The first one being, this review is not for the author. It is not for Taylor Jenkins Reid. It's not for friends, fans, family, stans, anything of the like. That this review will contain all of the spoilers. As stated, it will be a beat by beat, chapter by chapter breakdown. So if this is a book that you actually want to read on your own time, I'll catch you in the next one. And lastly, I would like to provide you a content or trigger warning. This book, to be honest, isn't all that bad, especially if you watch the other videos on this channel. Some things that I would like to note though is that there's some homophobia, there's some racism, domestic abuse, there's talk of a miscarriage, unaliving other people, and unaliving yourself. Trust me, I wish I could use the regular words for that, but this early in the video I will get flagged by YouTube, okay? Sorry, it is what it is. Self-censoring is truly, sadly, just a part of the world today. This is future Kaylee in the video. There is definitely some specific talks about domestic violence and the domestic violence that Evelyn dealt with in some of her relationships. Would like to give you a heads up. That is kind of like a common thing, and I do talk about it a little bit in detail. It's nothing too crazy, but just if that is something that you are very, very sensitive to, I just would like to give you a heads up. And also, just to say I love you and support you, and I hope that you find peace and safety, or that you're safe now, okay? The main complaints that come up, and the top reason for 1 stars, this is not a spoiler in any way. Like I said, this video will contain spoilers, but I will go through this as if you've never read this book before, so I'm not giving anything away from the jump, okay? I will say, people's main critiques are that Evelyn Hugo is a deeply unlikable person, and that the main great love that this book discusses is inherently abusive and crappy and really annoying to read about, and that nobody in the book was likable. Is it wrong? No, I don't think so. It's drama. It's literally just the most dramatic, craziest book ever, but there is some nuggets and insights and other things that I think do make it a valuable read. So I would love to tell you about it today. And with that, let's go ahead and get into it. I'll stop beating around the bush. Our book opens with Monique Grant. She works at a magazine called Vivant in New York City. It is a fashion magazine, and she works for a woman named Frankie. Frankie is a Black woman. Monique is biracial. Her father was Black, her mother is white, and Frankie, being Black, was one of the reasons that Monique took the job. Like, she really, really respects Frankie, really admires a Black woman. It's just very motivating for her. And so that was one of the reasons that she took the position. I bring that up for a reason. That is an ongoing thing throughout this book, is Monique's biracialness, right? In recognizing both halves of her identity. But with that, Frankie calls Monique into her office and she says, "Hey, you wouldn't guess it. This woman, Evelyn Hugo, has requested to be interviewed about her entire life. She's this really famous Hollywood 1960s movie star. This is the first time. She's like an incredibly private person, has never talked to the media before. All of a sudden says, I want Monique Grant specifically to interview me about my life." Monique, so excited. She's like, literally, this is life-changing. However, I'm just some random journalist with Vivant. Like, who am I to her? Like, why would she request me personally? That's kind of weird. But we're not going to question it. We're going to press right on. So in chapter 2, Monique is doing her research on Evelyn, finds out about the 7 husbands, finds out about the dramatic marriages, the scandals, the glamour, everything. And she is just fascinated by this woman. Honestly, who couldn't be? I feel like Evelyn is the idea of maybe a Marilyn Monroe, Audrey Hepburn, Elizabeth Taylor type, Natalie Wood. Those are all of who I was imagining when we're talking about Evelyn. And if you don't know who those people are, I'll put up photos of them too. Beautiful women, dude. Oh my God. So that's who I'm picturing, right? So Monique gets obsessed with Evelyn and notes in passing that she's very grateful for this distraction because Monique is going through a divorce with her husband, David. They are recently separated, going through this divorce. She's just been really going through it in life, and this is a great break for her. Now, as I get into chapter 3, one thing that I would like to note is that this book, while only this thick, if you're a visual person and if you're an audio listener, this book only has 390 pages, but it has 63 chapters. So I'm not going to call out each chapter as I go through this story as I usually do, just because that would get excessive and I would annoy the shit out of myself. So I'll just touch base maybe every 5 or so chapters just to let you know where we are in the book. But yeah, okay, so we're going to stray a little bit from the norm read, rant, review style. Monique shows up at Evelyn's house. They're in New York. I believe Monique lives in Manhattan. Evelyn is on the Upper East Side. Do I know what that means? I've watched Law & Order SVU and I watched Broad City. It's about the extent of my experience with New York. I'm just a little lady from the Midwest. I don't know, but it might be important for you. You might have more context to what these words mean. She goes to the Upper East Side to go and meet Evelyn at her apartment house thing. When she gets there, she meets Evelyn's assistant named Grace. She's very nice. She's very welcoming. And she goes inside, she goes into the little coffee room to wait for Evelyn, and she sees her come down the stairs. She's 70 years old, but she is just as beautiful and timeless and glamorous as ever. Just jaw-dropping. And doesn't waste a second. Evelyn, if you learn anything in this book, it is how cutthroat, no nonsense, straight to the point that this woman is. It was truly a dog-eat-dog world throughout the 1960s in the film industry, and we'll learn about that in more detail. But with that comes a very particular personality, like a get it done and get it done immediately personality, which I love. I'm not gonna lie. I love that. I love a boss-ass. So Evelyn cuts to the chase, and she says, hey, by the way, I'm not doing a tell-all to Vivant. I'm talking to you, Monique Grant, to write my biography. You can take it, you have the rights, you can do anything that you want with this information. I'm gonna tell you everything about my life, and this is for you. My only stipulation is that you publish it after I die. So Monique is like, what the hell are you about to say to me? Honest to God, what an intro, right? Evelyn immediately, she's like, hey, I don't regret anything I did. I'm not confessing any sins. I want to get it out there, and this is your story to sell. So now Monique is excited about this. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Life-changing opportunity, but also knows if she poaches, quote-unquote poaches, this story from Vivant, she will more than likely lose her job. In addition to that, now even more so, she's like, why me? I'm just, again, some random journalist. Why is this famous, beautiful woman reaching out to me when she literally has the pick of the litter and could go to anybody else in the world? Especially somebody who's an actual biographer. I just do magazine stuff. Ultimately, how could you say no to such a thing? Monique accepts the job. So after this initial introduction, this news about what the actual expectation of this relationship is, Evelyn goes to get ready or does something. She says, hey, I'll meet you back in my office in 30 minutes. Take a break. So she does. And in this moment of silence, Monique starts to freak out a little bit. The weight of this opportunity is kind of hitting her. And so she channels her father. Her father passed away when she was very young, but he used to walk her through her panic attacks and through her freaky outy moments by doing breathing exercises with her. So that's what she does. She thinks of her dad. She tries to calm down. Frankie calls her, And Monique plays it off. She's like, yeah, I don't know. She's like really vague about what she wants to do. Like, we're just kind of figuring it out. Like, it'll just, I don't really know what to expect yet. And just tries to play dumb about the situation. Because, again, she doesn't want to lose her job. And really, the main thing that Frankie cares about is if Evelyn will sit for a cover shoot. Like, will she at least do the cover of the magazine? Because, yeah, one thing is an interview, but the cover is really what's going to get people's attention. She says she'll try. She'll see what she can do to get Evelyn to agree to this. And so begins the opening statement from Evelyn. And I'll just go ahead and read you this first page and a half so that you understand the context and the type of woman that we are dealing with for this book. You take the desk, Evelyn says as she comes in. She hands me a glass of water. I can only assume the way that this works is I talk and you write. I suppose, I say sitting in the desk chair, I've never attempted to write a biography before. After all, I'm not a biographer. Evelyn looks at me pointedly. She sits opposite me on the sofa. Let me explain something to you. When I was 14 years old, my mother had already died, and I was living with my father. The older I got, the more that I realized that it was only a matter of time until my father tried to marry me off to a friend of his or his boss, someone who could help his situation. And if I'm being honest, the more I developed, the less secure I was in the idea that my father might not try to take something of me for himself. We were so broke that we were stealing the electricity from the apartment above us. There was one outlet in our place that was on their circuit, so we plugged anything that we needed to use into that one socket. If I needed to do homework after dark, I plugged in a lamp in that outlet and sat underneath it with my book. My mother was a saint. I really mean it. Stunningly beautiful, an incredible singer with a heart of gold. For years before she died, she would always tell me that we were going to get out of Hell's Kitchen and go straight to Hollywood. She said that she was going to be the most famous woman in the world and get us a mansion on the beach. I had this fantasy of the two of us together in a house, throwing parties, drinking champagne, and then she died. And it was like waking up from a dream. Suddenly, I was in a world where none of that was ever going to happen, and I was going to be stuck in Hell's Kitchen forever. I was gorgeous. Even at 14. Oh, I know, the whole world prefers a woman who doesn't know her power, but I'm sick of all of that. I turned heads. Now, I take no pride in this. I didn't make my own face. I didn't give myself this body, but I'm also not going to sit here and say, oh, shucks, people really thought I was pretty, like some kind of prig. My friend Beverly knew a guy in her building named Ernie Diaz, who was an electrician, and Ernie knew a guy over at MGM. At least that was the rumor going around. And one day, Beverly told me that she heard Ernie was up for some job rigging lights in Hollywood. So that weekend, I made a reason to go over to Beverly's, and I accidentally knocked on Ernie's door. I knew exactly where Beverly was, but I knocked on Ernie's door, and I said, have you seen Beverly Gustafson? Ernie was 22. He wasn't handsome by any means, but he was fine to look at. He said that he hadn't seen her, but I watched as he continued to stare at me. I watched as his eyes started at mine and grazed their way down, scanning every inch of me in my favorite green dress. And then Ernie said, sweetheart, are you 16? I was 14, remember? But do you know what I did? I said, why, I just turned. Evelyn looks at me with purpose. Do you understand what I'm telling you? When you're given an opportunity to change your life, be ready to do whatever it takes to make that happen. The world doesn't give things. You take things. If you learn one thing from me, it should probably be that. Monique takes this pep talk. She's like, okay, you're right. You're right. I'm not a biographer, but I am now. I will be one. You're right. I got it. Heard, chef. Monique, the question that she has written, the basis of this biography, is who was the love of Evelyn's life? That's the big question. That's the hook of this book. The 7 husbands. Which one did she love best? Which one was the real one? As both a journalist and a consumer, that's what I want to know. It won't be where the book begins, but maybe that's where she and I should begin. I want to know, going into these marriages, which is the one that matters the most. I look up to Evelyn to see her sitting up ready for me. She asks, who was the love of your life? Was it Harry Cameron? Evelyn thinks and then answers slowly, not in the way that you mean. No. In what way then? Harry was my greatest friend. He invented me. He was the person who loved me the most unconditionally, the person that I loved most purely, I think, other than my daughter. But no, he was not the love of my life. Why not? Because that was someone else. So Monique says, okay, who was it then? And Evelyn says, I don't think I'm ready to answer that. How about you come back Monday and we'll start fresh? Say no more. Chapter 5, it's the following Monday, and they're back in Evelyn's study. Monique is there, and she asks Evelyn, she's like, okay, are you ready now? Are you ready to start? Are you sure that you're okay? And Evelyn says, everyone I love is dead now. There's no one left to protect. No one left to lie for but me. People have so closely followed the most intricate details of the fake story of my life, but it's not, I want them to know the real story, the real me. All right, show me the real you then, and I'll make sure that the world understands. Evelyn looks at me briefly and smiles, and I can tell I have said what she wants to hear. Fortunately, I mean it. Let's go chronologically. Tell me more about Ernie Diaz, your first husband, the one who got you out of Hell's Kitchen. Okay, Evelyn says, nodding. It's as good a place to start as any. So we go into Ernie Diaz. And each of the portions of this book, if you are not watching visually, it has the name of the husband. And so this one is titled Poor Ernie Diaz. More story about Evelyn growing up in Hell's Kitchen, how it was super rough and poor, and she hit puberty at a young age and got very curvy at the age of 13-ish, 11 to 13 when she hit puberty. And very quickly, men started paying a little too much attention to her. So when she was 13 years old, the cashier at the candy shop was checking her out, and she realized a very important lesson. And the idea was, these men wanted something from her, and you could either do it for free or you could do it for free candy. And that's exactly what she did. So over the next few months, Evelyn, she met with the cashier once a week to give him whatever thing happened between them, and she would get all the free candy that she wanted. She would get her pick of what was at the store. Okay, we are starting off rough, interesting, I guess would be the word, at that age with that lesson of men are gonna sexualize you anyway. They're going to look at you, take what they want from you. You might as well get something out of it. That's one way to deal with the world. She decides that she is going to use her sexuality in order to get out of Hell's Kitchen. If that's the best thing she has going for her, if that's the easiest thing that she can do to get out of Hell's Kitchen, then I'll be damned, that's what I'm doing, right? So at 14, she meets Ernie Diaz, like we said. He was rumored to be doing a thing over in Hollywood. She goes and meets him. He ends up I don't like the term, but it's the term in the book. She gives him her virginity for a ride to Hollywood. They get married when she's only 15 years old, and Evelyn, once they move out to Hollywood, spends her time at restaurants where all of the Hollywood people go so that she can try and make these connections and, that's all. I guess just make these connections and see how the world works and try and have her breakthrough. 4 months later, after she moves to Hollywood, she meets Harry. 2 weeks after that, she has a contract with Sunset Studios. Harry works in the industry, starts looking out for her, sets her up with Sunset Studios. In 1954, Evelyn lands her first role. It's a minor role. It's really nothing too crazy. And when she talks to Harry about it, and she's like, hey, I want a big role. I want to do something great. Harry says, not an option. Because Evelyn, surprise, surprise, is actually of Cuban descent. It gets talked about in the other chapters. My bad for not mentioning it sooner. She's of Cuban descent. She has dark hair, bronze skin, has an accent, all of these things. And so Harry says, hey, they're not going to want to hire a woman of color. You're going to have to be a different person. You're going to have to work on the accent. You're going to have to work on all this stuff. Dye your hair, do your makeup differently. Don't be Cuban, pretty much. She says, okay. They dye her hair blonde. I believe he's a movie producer, maybe a director, named Ari. He's 48 years old and has a propensity for young girls. Yeah, right? So she gets in front of him, gets her way in with him so that he can help propel her career, takes Harry's advice, and she now becomes Evelyn Hugo. They change her last name with this change in persona. And talking to Ari, hooking up with Ari, which I hate saying because obviously she's underage at this point still. I think she's only 15 or 16. This is obviously very illegal, but this is how it's presented, okay? Don't shoot the messenger here. She says, okay, I have the way forward. And she divorces Ernie. So ends the first marriage. So current day, she acknowledges that she broke Ernie's heart, but also she doesn't regret it because she would have done anything to escape Hell's Kitchen, and she did what she had to do. And so I think this is where she starts to rub people the wrong way immediately, is because she is so, you have to do what you have to do. You step on the people you need to, you burn the bridges you need to, you hustle and you do whatever you have to do to get out of Hell's Kitchen, to get out of poverty, to get out of these dangerous situations. And I think that's a very short-sighted judgment, or a judgment from people who have never genuinely struggled and know what it means when you are willing to do anything that you can to get out of horrible situations that you're in, if you've been there, you know. Like, I have no hate, no judgment on Evelyn. She did what she had to do to get out of a situation that she was in. No judgment here. So in chapter 7, they end the interview. Evelyn has a dinner date or something that she has to go to. Monique goes home and she gets a phone call from her mom. And her mom says, "Hey, honey, I'm going to come and visit you in 2 weeks," which conveniently lines up with the time that this interview with Evelyn will be over. It's going to be like a 2-week stint of getting the information about her, like, biography. Talking to her mom about the situation, telling her about Evelyn, and saying, yeah, I don't know. There's just something off. Like, there's more to her motives. I still don't understand why she's asking me to do this. And the mom really has, like, nothing to add. She's just like, oh, honey, you're just so talented. Maybe that's what it is. Like, don't overthink it. Just enjoy the opportunity, right? So in chapter 8, she has continued. One of the reasons that she talked to Ari and that she's been talking to Harry so much is because she wants to get a role in the movie Little Women. It keeps getting pushed off. Harry keeps telling her it's not time in her career yet to do that kind of movie. Like, just do some other stuff. So she's doing a few hit comedies. She's doing well. She's slowly, like, on the trajectory, right, to having a great career, but it's not going fast enough. She wants that, like, instant stardom. Harry arranges a couple dates for her to go on with some of the famous male actors in order to boost some gossip, get her in the tabloids, get her in this, like, you know, get some attention going, the rumor mill spinning, right? She's kind of against it until she goes on a date with a guy named Don Adler. They hit it off immediately. Both of them wildly in love with each other, fascinated with each other. Hindsight, Evelyn says the following: "There's absolutely no reason that a man like Don Adler should have had a different effect on me from the rest of the men in the world. He was no more handsome than Brick Thomas, no more earnest than Ernie Diaz, and he couldn't offer me stardom whether I loved him or not. But these things defy reason. I blame pheromones, ultimately. That and the fact that, at least at first, Don Adler treated me like a person. There are people who see a beautiful flower and rush over to pick it. They want to hold it in their hands. They want to own it. They want the flower's beauty to be theirs, to be within their possession, their control. Don wasn't like that, at least not at first. Don was happy to be near the flower, to look at the flower, to appreciate the flower for simply being. Here's the thing about marrying a guy like that. A guy like Don Adler back then. You're saying to him, this beautiful thing that you've been happy to simply appreciate, well, now it's yours to own." At the end of this first date that they go on, the gossip columns are buzzing. She is just absolutely smitten with Don. And she is just annoying the shit out of Harry. Like, that is literally all she talks about is Dawn, unless Harry talks about her career. Like, that is the only thing that he can distract her with. But Harry does say, like, hey, you know, you really should try to make a real go of it with Dawn. The way that you like him, it would be great for your career. Like, there's some good stuff here. You should pursue, like, taking this relationship seriously. So that night, Dawn is picking up Evelyn to go to a movie premiere. In the cab drive, on the way over, he says, hey, I have an engagement ring. I'm going to propose to you on the red carpet if you want to be my wife, and this will, again, boost our careers. This will be great. And also, we're kind of infatuated with each other. Like, let's do it. Okay. She says, yeah, this is great. This will be wonderful. So he does. They get on the red carpet. They're going to this premiere. He pops the question. She says yes. When she looks up from him, she looks over his shoulder. Harry is off in the crowd winking at her. And so in chapter 10, Dawn and Evelyn get married, and she's so happy to be the most famous bride in the world. And Harry wonders if she will truly be happy, and Evelyn assures him. She's like, yeah, I will be. But also, you know, we've been friends for a couple years now. Like, why have you never tried to hit on me? Like, why have we never done anything? He doesn't say it, but Harry is gay. Evelyn understands this and understands that she's picking up what he's putting down without having to say it out loud. So she's like, okay, well, we'll just be best friends then. So as they're celebrating their wedding and all this stuff, and Dawn and her are dancing, and he's saying how much he loves her body, how talented she is, and he's just so in love with her skills, and it's happy. And it was happy for 2 months until he started hitting her. 6 weeks into the marriage, Evelyn and Dawn are shooting a movie together. Of note, the first few weeks of their marriage were super, super good until Dawn was in a Western film, I believe. It didn't perform very well. And so he started to take that anger, like explosiveness and this like obsession with fame out on Evelyn and physically harming her, really kind of talking crap about her career, trying to put her down, you know, making himself feel better than her, which also translates to him getting very obsessed with the idea of her changing her name to his, her getting pregnant and having his kids, and she refuses to do any of that because she says, my career, I'm not doing any of that because like it's gonna derail my whole career. I am Evelyn Hugo, and also I'm in the prime of it. I'm not gonna have a baby and be out of commission for like a year total. That's just not a thing. So they get in this argument in the trailer of this movie set. He ends up hitting her, right? Slaps her across the face. She has this like huge welt on her face. In the middle of this, like after he hits her, the director's assistant knocks on the door and is telling them to come to set. She covers for Dawn. He storms out. She just says, hey, I just have some lady troubles. It'll just be a minute. I have to deal with some things. But the assistant comes in, sees her. There's no way that you miss the giant red palm forming on her cheek. And the assistant says, oh, sweetheart, you look a fright. I know. She looked at me more closely and realized what she was seeing. Did you fall? Yes, I said. I did. I fell right over onto the counter. Jaw caught the worst of it. We both knew that I was lying, and to this day, I'm not sure whether Gwen had asked me if I fell in order to spare me the need to lie or to encourage me to keep quiet. I wasn't the only woman being hit back then. A lot of women were negotiating the very same things that I was at the moment. There was a social code for these things. The first rule being to shut up about it. An hour later, I was being escorted to set. We were to film a scene just outside a mansion on the beach. Don was sitting in his chair, the 4 wooden legs digging into the sand behind the director. He ran up to me. How are you feeling, sweetheart? His voice was so chipper, so consoling that for a moment I thought that he had forgotten what happened. I'm fine, let's get on with it. The director yelled, hold on, and asked what was going on with the boom. Distracted by conversation, Don walks over to her, and he covers his mic and then puts his hand on my chest, covering mine. He whispers into my ear, Evelyn, I'm so sorry. I pulled back and looked at him stunned. No one had ever apologized for hitting me before. Oh my God. I never should have laid a hand on you, he said. His eyes were filling with tears. I'm ashamed of myself for doing anything at all to hurt you. He looked so pained. I will do anything for your forgiveness. Maybe the life I thought I had wasn't so far away after all. Can you forgive me? He asked. Maybe this was all a mistake. Maybe it didn't mean anything had to change. Of course I can, I said. The director ran back to the camera and Don leaned back, taking his hands off our mics. And action! Dawn and I were both nominated for Academy Awards for One More Day. That's the name of the film. And I think the general consensus was that it didn't matter how talented we were. People just loved seeing us together. To this day, I have no idea if either of us is actually any good in it. It is the only movie I've ever shot that I cannot bring myself to watch. Oh my God, what the fuck? So again, I come back to the question of how do you read something like that and not have it resonate with you in some way? Or how do you read that and not feel compelled to root for Evelyn as a character? And this is also where, not to get TMI with y'all, but I also understand my bias and support of women in situations like that, right? So maybe if you don't have experience in relationships with that, or like witnessing that, or supporting people through that, or if you haven't been in one, maybe it doesn't strike a chord with you quite as hard as maybe it did for me. But I was like, yeah, even now reading that for like the 5th time, I'm like, God, I just want to hug this woman. That's terrible, dude. Jesus. And we're only in chapter 12. And so chapter 12 opens with the following sentence. A man hits you once and apologizes, and you think that it will never happen again. But then you tell him that you're not sure if you ever want a family, and he hits you once more. You tell yourself it's understandable what he did. You were sort of rude the way that you said it. You do want a family someday, truly, you do. You're just not sure how you're going to manage it with your movies, but you should have been more clear. The next morning he apologizes and brings you flowers. He gets down on his knees. The 3rd time it's a disagreement about whether you want to go out to Romanov's or stay in, which you realize when he pushes you into the wall behind you, it is actually about the image of your marriage to the public. The 4th time, it's after you both lose at the Oscars. You are in a silk emerald green one-shoulder dress. He's in a tux with tails. He has too much to drink at the after parties, trying to nurse his wounds. You're in the front seat of your car in your driveway about to go inside. He's upset that he's lost. You tell him that it's okay. He tells you that you don't understand. You remind him that you lost too. He says, yeah, but your parents are trash from Long Island. No one expects anything from you. You know you shouldn't say, but you say, I'm from Hell's Kitchen, you asshole. And it all goes down from there. Luckily for Evelyn, she's able to find some distraction in the fact that the movie Little Women is finally set to begin recording. Double whammy though. The issue is that a woman named Celia St. James has been chosen to play the role of Beth. Celia, while Beth is like a more minor role, Celia is a significantly more talented actress. Evelyn knows this, and so immediately she's upset because she's like, I'm gonna be outshined in this. As Harry is telling her about this role that she finally got, that this is super exciting news, Harry notices a bruise that she has under her eye, and he's incredibly upset with her for not telling him and for not getting help and getting out of the situation. And Evelyn just plays it off, and she's like, I don't need any help from you other than helping me shine in the movie. Like, help me do so good in Little Women, and that's all I need from you. Like, I'll be okay. Don't worry about me. I don't need anything else. Ugh. And she's like thinking and talking to Harry and all of these things about how she can't leave Dawn because it would ruin her career. And also she does love him. In chapter 13, filming for the movie continues. So does the abuse. At one point, Dawn had pushed her down the stairs. So she has bruises all over her body. When she's at the house, getting into the shower, their housekeeper, Paula, walks into the room, sees the bruises on her body. Now, Evelyn angrily wonders why Paula didn't sell the story of Don Adler beating his wife instead of going after her. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. On set, though, of Little Women, Evelyn and one of her co-stars that she's been kind of friends with throughout this whole time, named Ruby, talk crap to Celia. They're intimidated by her. It's a dog-eat-dog world. Everybody's just kind of catty and like taking each other out to get to the top, right? Evelyn and Ruby team up to talk shit to Celia and make her feel bad about herself. Celia, immune to their cattiness, their coldness, or maybe just doesn't pick up on it, approaches them and expresses how, she's like kind of concerned. Like she's, just feeling a little anxious about this whole situation. And they go on to tell her, you don't have a reason to be concerned. I wouldn't worry about it. Beth, Celia's role, is the most likable role, and it's a shoo-in for nominations. Pretty much like undercutting her talent, right? If you don't understand what that actually means, in cattiness, that's saying, hey, you don't actually have to try because that's like the easiest role here. And like you're kind of like already built in to get a nomination. So like, I don't want to hear it because that doesn't take talent. Like you're just likable. And so Celia's response is, oh, if it's like such a role for that, like why didn't you guys apply for it? And Evelyn says that she's too old for it and realizes in that moment that she just played into Celia's hands. Like she just got played because she said she was old. And God forbid anybody age in Hollywood, right? And at that moment, Evelyn realizes Celia's actually pretty cool. She can dish it out, you know what I mean? Like she's a cool lady. And so begins this friendship, right? She can't help but like Celia. They wrap up the interview for the day, and Evelyn pretty much tells Monique that the photo shoot for the cover is not going to happen. Like, she's not doing it. That kind of throws a wrench into things, right? So Monique goes home thinking about life, everything going on, and she has a package from her mother. In the package is a bunch of photo albums from her father. She goes through them. She's heartbroken about losing him at such a young age and how much she misses him, and how a year before he died, he had to go to Vancouver for 2 months to do a job. Like he was in the industry, he was in the Hollywood industry, and so he had this thing to go and do, and then he ended up dying, right? And it obviously broke her, but she realized in that moment, and in the moment when he was gone and out at this thing he was doing in Vancouver, that she was going to follow in her father's footsteps, that she wanted to be a part of Hollywood. She wanted to do journalist stuff. She wanted to write and pursue her passion in this industry. Also thinking how grateful she is for that and for that, guidance kind of that she placed on herself, inspired by her father, because it led to her meeting her husband. Although they're ending things, she's still grateful for that. And it also led to her interviewing Evelyn, which again is this crazy huge career moment that she is incredibly thankful for. And so she kind of takes that moment to thank her dad. And it also leads her to reflect on the fact that her actual name, her full name, is Elizabeth Monique Grant. And when her father died, she started going by Monique because that is the name that he chose. Her mother chose Elizabeth. He chose Monique. She wanted to channel her father and kind of carry that piece of her. But she also does some further reflection about her being biracial and how after her father died, she felt incomplete, like she had lost this half of her identity. But looking at this photo album, seeing all of them together, she's realizing how whole she is because of both of them, which, hey, again, I'm just a white lady. There's a lot of stuff I can't speak to that happened in this book, but it is a theme, this whole two parts of yourself, right? We also see it with Evelyn, her Cuban heritage, she's hiding to be famous. There's some other stuff that we'll continue to talk about. A lot of this book portrays the many different ways that we hide aspects of ourselves, or we're in denial about aspects of ourselves for one reason or another. And so it's just something I just would like to note, and we'll revisit it later. In chapter 15, it's before they begin filming for the Little Women movie. Evelyn is telling Dawn about how she's worried about Celia stealing the spotlight, etc., etc. He says, do you want me to talk to the studio? We can have her pulled from the movie if that's something that you're actually worried about. She says, no, it's fine. I actually like her. Okay. The next day, Celia asks Evelyn to join her to get a milkshake, to hang out. They're going to go to this one particular kind of, outside of town, little chill spot. Last second in the car, Celia says, oh, just kidding. We're actually going to go to this other location. And of course, it's the hot spot, right? Where all the paparazzi is, where all the stars go. Celia conned Evelyn into going on this hangout with her so that they would be photographed together to help and raise Celia's popularity. Literally, all of these women just backstabbing each other and using each other to climb the social ladder. Evelyn calls her out on this. She says, no, you know what, actually, let's go to this other place. Derails the plan, calls Celia out for using her. Celia, a little humbled about Evelyn putting her in her place, but recovers saying, yeah, I might have been using you to get, you might be more famous than me, but I'm more talented than you. And that's why you wanted to get me kicked off the film. And so now Evelyn is the one that's humbled because she's like, how does Celia know that? How does she know that that Dawn and I talked about that? That's kind of weird, but also, okay, cool. We're both these very aggressive women who just want to be talented and who want to be at the top of our fame. And so Evelyn, she's not ashamed by it. And instead she says, okay, hey, cool. How about we make this friendship beneficial for the both of us? I get you famous and you help me be a better actress. Celia says, okay, after hours, I'll help you with your scenes and I'll teach you what I know. And I go with you to Schwab's, aka the milkshake place. You help me do what you've done. Become a star, Celia says. But then what? I said. We both end up famous, talented, and competing for every job in town. I suppose that's one option. And the other? I really like you, Evelyn. I looked at her sideways. She laughed at me. I know that's probably not something that most actresses mean in this town, but I don't want to be like most actresses. I really like you. I like watching you on screen. I like how the moment you show up in a scene, I can't look at anything else. I like the way that your skin is too dark for your blonde hair. The way that the two shouldn't go together and yet seem so natural on you. And to be honest, I like how calculating and awful you are. I am not awful, Celia laughed. Oh, you definitely are. Getting me fired because you think I'll show you up? Awful. That's just awful, Evelyn. And walking around bragging about how you use people? It's just terrible. But I really like it when you talk about it. I like how honest you are, how unashamed. So many women around here are full of crap with everything that they say and do. I like that you're full of crap only when it gets you something. This laundry list of compliments seems to have a lot of insults in it, I said. Celia nodded, hearing me. You know what you want, and you go after it. I don't think there is anyone in this town doubting that Evelyn Hugo is going to be the biggest star in Hollywood one of these days. And that's not just because you're something to look at. It's because you decided you wanted to be huge and now you're going to be. I want to be friends with a woman like that. That's what I'm saying. Real friends. None of this Ruby Riley backstabbing, talking about each other behind our backs crap. Friendship, where each of us gets better, lives gets better because we know each other. I considered her. Do we have to do each other's hair and stuff like that? Sunset pays people to do that, so no. Do I have to listen to your man troubles? Certainly not. So what then? We choose to spend time together and try to be there for each other? Evelyn, have you never had a friend before? Of course I've had friends before. A real one? A close friend? A true friend? I have a true friend. Thank you very much. Who is it? Harry Cameron. Harry Cameron is your friend? He's my best friend. Well, fine, Celia said, putting out her hand for me to shake. I will be your second best friend next to Harry Cameron. I took her hand and shook it firmly. Fine. Tomorrow, I'll take you to Schwab's, and afterward, we can rehearse together. Thank you, she said, and she smiled brightly as if she had gotten everything she'd ever wanted in the world. She hugged me, and when we broke away, a man behind the counter was staring at us. I asked for a check. It's on the house, he said, which I thought was the stupidest thing, because if there is anyone who should be getting free food, it isn't rich people. Amen. Will you tell your husband that I loved Gun and Point Dune? The man said as Celia and I got up to leave. What husband? I said as coyly as possible. Celia laughed and I flashed a grin. But what I was really thinking was, I can't tell him that. He'll think I'm making fun of him and he'll smack me. I'm fighting demons again. This is so sad. This happens so many times in this book. And it hurts me. It makes me so sad. So, fuck. I don't even have any words, man. I was so happy and cute, and I'm like, oh my god, they're like hitting it off, and she's getting a friend, and they're like low-key kind of flirting, and then back to reality, and I'm just, And so, also another thing, if you're not a visual person, every so often in the book, there will be a newspaper article that shows, kind of providing context for the next portion of the story. So in this particular news piece, this is from Paula, the housemaid worker person who saw the bruises on her. The way that I would fight a bitch. Sorry, that was aggressive. Paula ran to the news and sold a story to the news people talking about how Evelyn refuses to have children with Dawn and how sad that it's making him that Evelyn is just essentially this like frigid bitch that doesn't want to give him children and let him live a good life. Not selling the fact that Don Adler is a wife abuser, not selling the fact that he's this like crazy angry man. No. We're selling the story against Evelyn Hugo getting hit by her husband. Obviously, they don't say that in the article, but that's what Paula sold. That's what Paula saw, and that's what Paula translated it as. Just to get a buck. I hate people. Evelyn has continued to enjoy Celia's company, though, and finds herself rooting for Celia just as much as she is rooting for her own career. So after seeing this article, this is a week after Celia and Evelyn have finished filming Little Women. The movie's about to come out. So with negative publicity, it's going to completely ruin the movie launch, right? So they can't have that. So Evelyn brings the newspaper article to Harry. Harry and Celia are there, and they're trying to figure out, like, how do we bounce back from this? Like, what do we do? Harry says, I can try to make this disappear. We can try to get rid of Paula. Like, I don't know what exactly, a bunch of these different options. Evelyn says, I have an idea. The plan is she's going to stage a phone call that night with her doctor. She's going to have her doctor call her, knowing that when the doctor calls, Paula will be listening in on the other line, and have the doctor announce that she has miscarried to make Paula feel bad about herself, and then also to, get the next article going. And that's what happens. So she starts wailing on the phone, just in case, by some off chance, Paula's not listening in, she like goes into full theatrics that night about like, oh my God, I lost my baby. Oh my God, our marriage. This is so horrible. Just like bawling her eyes out full volume. Her husband, Don, then goes downstairs to fire Paula and is not nice about it. Like really intentionally burns that bridge with her to kind of also not pressure Paula to go to the news, but to give her some extra kindling to go to the news and set fire to their lives. And so that's exactly what happens. Almost immediately, there's a follow-up article saying that people need to be praying for Dawn and Evelyn as they go through this like tough time in their life. We're back on track. We cleared the scandal, guys, by faking a miscarriage. Jesus Christ. Okay. In chapter 17, after the article happens, Evelyn invites Celia over to celebrate. They're like, oh, it worked. This is awesome. Like, Celia, you should come over. They open up to one another and they share with each other. They share their real names. Evelyn says that her name is Evelyn Herrera, and Celia didn't react really. She didn't say, so you are Latin, or I knew you were faking it as I feared that she might be thinking. She didn't say that explained why my skin was darker than hers or Dawn's. In fact, she said nothing at all until she said, that's beautiful. And yours? I asked. I stood up and moved over to the couch where she was sitting to close the gap between us. Celia St. James? Jameson. What? Cecilia Jameson. That's my real name. That's a great name. Why'd they change it? I changed it. Why? Because it sounds like a girl who might live next door to you, and I've always wanted to be the kind of girl you feel lucky just to lay your eyes on. She tilted her head back and finished her wine. Like you. Oh, stop. You stop. You know damn well what you are, how you affect people around you. I'd kill for a chest like that and full lips like yours. You make people think of undressing you just by showing up in a room fully clothed. I felt flushed hearing her talk about me like that. Having her talk about the way that men saw me. I'd never heard a woman talk about me like that before. Celia took my glass out of my hand. She threw the wine back to her own throat. We need more, she said, waving the glass in the air. I smiled and took both glasses to the kitchen. Celia followed me. She leaned against my counter as I poured, and they go on to flirt. I love when women flirt. But after their second bottle of wine, Evelyn accidentally spills red wine on Celia's white blouse, so they rush into her room so that Celia can change and put something on. As she's changing, Evelyn sees her without a shirt on and really starts to question some things about herself, in that she's never felt this way before, and how beautiful Celia is and how just like enamored she is, especially by the freckles on Celia's hip. She just can't help but stare at them. During this time too, Celia asks if Evelyn really loves Dawn, and Evelyn admits that she just doesn't know. So Celia promises to keep her secret, and that's the moment where Evelyn realizes that that's the first time that she's ever really been honest with somebody about her identity, about her love for Dawn, about some of the other issues that they're having, just been so like open and vulnerable with someone. Like even with Harry, it's a little bit different. Like this is the first time that she has ever just been open and comfortable, and how different that she feels about Celia. Celia says, I hope you know by now that all of your secrets are safe with me. I think for her it was a throwaway line, but it meant a lot to me. Not because she said it, I suppose, but because when she said it, I realized that I believed her. I do. I said, I do know that. People think that intimacy is about sex, but intimacy is about the truth. When you realize that you can tell someone your truth, when you can show yourself to them, when you can stand in front of them bare, and their response is, you're safe with me. That's intimacy. And by those standards, that moment with Celia was the most intimate one that I had had with anyone. It made me so appreciative, so grateful, that I wanted to wrap my arms around her and never let go. I wanted to give her a lot of things. I wanted what I had to be hers. I'm talking about her t-shirt. I wondered if this is what it feels like to love someone. I already knew what it meant to be in love with someone. I'd felt it, and I'd acted it. But to love someone, to care for them, to throw your lot in with theirs and think whatever happens, it's you and me. So in chapter 18, they're going to go to the premiere of Little Women. Celia doesn't want to take a +1. Evelyn begs her to because she's like, hey, I'm taking Dawn. You should take somebody with you. Like, we should all go together. Eventually she does. And Evelyn, as she is at this table with Celia and her date, she's realizing that she's tiring of Dawn. And she's feeling a little bit jealous of Celia's date and how her date is making her laugh. And all that Evelyn can think of is like, she's successful because of me. Like, I'm the reason that she has diamonds. Like, I would give her everything. I have given her everything that she has. Okay, I understand this is where some of the comments come in of this like toxic behavior, but okay, so she's feeling jealous, right? She doesn't really know how to channel it. She doesn't really know what to do with these emotions in her chest. Okay, there's like a controlling aspect that I think people are picking up on. But Evelyn is also saying, like, I should be her date. It's not stemming. It is toxic, yes, don't get me wrong. Yes, the way she says it is messed up. Yes, she's trying to take credit for things that Celia has obviously worked hard for. Evelyn's commentary in a lot of this isn't necessarily Kaylee's opinion toxic in that regard. It's more of her date shouldn't be making her laugh. It should be me. I'm the one that did stuff for Celia. I saw the freckles on her head, right? I'm the one that got her the front page on these like news articles of us hanging out. Like, I'm the one that, you know, I should be on the date with her. But it's like this misplaced, internalized, not, I guess, homophobia, but this internalized not knowing what those feelings are and not knowing how to put a name to it or how to act on it, where it just comes out a little garbled. And again, I'm back in the fact of, if you haven't been there, maybe you don't quite pick it up that way. They watched the premiere. Celia takes the show. Evelyn knows this. And she knows that Celia is going to win all of the awards. And she's not even upset about it because she is so just enamored with how beautiful and amazing that Celia is. She reaches across the men, like between the dates, reaches over to Celia to like hold her hand and congratulate her. And in that moment, she yet again thinks that Dawn will find a reason to hit her later. It's so sad. So they go to the after party. Dawn ditches her. She's a little upset about it, but really she just wants to find Celia. She just wants to celebrate, congratulate her, talk to her, whatever. In the middle of trying to find her, Ruby, mentioned her briefly earlier, one of the friends, she was also on Little Women, pulls Evelyn into a closet and she says, hey, Celia is a lesbian. If you continue hanging out with her, you're going to get labeled. She's kind of crazy. I just want you to know you can't hang out with her. Like, she's, you know, she's a lesbian. And also, hey, by the way, I don't know why you care about a woman like that. Your husband's upstairs getting a BJ from a harpy. Evelyn, I don't mean to laugh at that. That's like tragic and horrible. She's almost like equally upset about this, right? She's upset about both of these things. How she can't find Celia and this like weird commentary from Ruby, but also obviously she's upset that her husband is cheating on her. Evelyn says that she needs a minute to collect herself. Okay, so she does. And Monique says, did you know? Did I know what? That Celia St. James was gay. I'm telling you the story as it unfolded. Well, yes, but what? Evelyn is calm, perfectly composed, and I can't tell if it's because she knows what I suspect and she's finally ready to tell the truth, or because I'm dead wrong and she has no idea what I'm thinking. Who was the love of your life? Evelyn looks me in the eye, and I know that she needs one more tiny push. It's okay, Evelyn, really. It is a big deal, but it is okay. Things are different now from how they were then. Although not entirely safe either, I have to admit. But still, she can say it. She can say it to me. She can admit it freely. Now, here. Evelyn, who is your great love? You can tell me. Evelyn looks out the window, breathes in deeply, and says, Celia St. James. Okay. The room is quiet as Evelyn lets herself hear her own words, and then she smiles, a bright, wide, deeply sincere smile. She starts laughing at herself and refocuses on me. I feel like I've spent my entire life loving her. So this book, your biography, you're ready to come out as a gay woman? Evelyn closes her eyes for a moment, and at first I think she's processing the weight of what I've said. But once she opens her eyes again, I realize that she's trying to process my stupidity. Haven't you been listening to a single thing I've told you? I loved Celia, but I also, before her, loved Dawn. In fact, I'm positive that if Dawn hadn't turned out to be a spectacular asshole, I probably would have never been capable of falling in love with someone else at all. I'm bisexual. Don't ignore half of me so you can fit me into a box, Monique. Don't do that. Ooh, this stings. Hard. I know how it feels for people to assume things about you, to prescribe a label for you based on how you appear to them. I've spent my entire life trying to explain to people that while I look black, I am biracial. I've spent my life knowing the importance of allowing people to tell you who they are instead of reducing them to labels. And here, I've gone and done to Evelyn what so many people have done to me. Her love affair with a woman signaled to me that she was gay, and I did not wait for her to tell me that she was bisexual. This is her whole point, isn't it? This is why she wants to be so acutely understood with such perfect word choices, because she wants to be seen exactly as she truly is, with all the nuance and shades of gray. The same way that I have wanted to be seen. I just fucked up. And despite my desire to blow past it or reduce it to nothing, I know the stronger move here is to apologize. I'm sorry. You're absolutely right. I should have asked you how you identify instead of assuming that I knew. So let me try again. Are you prepared to come out in the pages of this book as a bisexual woman? Yes. Yes, I am. And how exactly did you figure it out? That you loved her? After all, you could have found out that she was interested in women and just as easily not realized that you were interested in her. Well, it helped that my husband was upstairs cheating on me, because I was sickeningly jealous on both accounts. I was jealous when I found out Celia was gay because it meant that she was with other women or had been with other women and that her life wasn't just me. And I was jealous that my husband was with a woman upstairs at the very party that I was at because it was embarrassing and threatened my way of life. I had been living in this world where I thought that I could have this closeness with Celia despite the distance with Dawn, and neither one of them would need anything from anyone else. It was this odd bubble that just up and burst. I would imagine back then it wasn't a conclusion that you'd come to so easily, being in love with someone of the same sex. Of course not. Maybe if I'd spent my whole life fighting off feelings for women, then I might have had a template for it, but I didn't. I was taught to like men, and I had found, albeit temporarily, love and lust with a man. The fact that I wanted to be around Celia all the time, the fact that I cared about her enough that I valued her happiness over my own, the fact that I liked to think about the moment when she stood in front of me without her shirt on. Now, you might put those pieces together and you say 1 + 1 equals I'm in love with a woman, but back then, at least for me, I didn't have that equation. And if you don't even realize that there's a formula to be working with, how the hell are you supposed to find the answer? She goes on, I thought I had a friendship with a woman, and I thought my marriage was down the tubes because my husband was an asshole. And by the way, both things were true. They just weren't the whole truth. So what did you do? At the party? Yeah, who did you go to first? Well, Evelyn says, one of them came to me. And we go into chapter 20. And I would just like to say, I would like to take a second to recognize this book was published in 2017. 2017 might not seem that far away, okay? It might not seem that long ago, but I also feel with all of the chaos and everything that has happened since 2020, the last 5 years have been a lifetime for people. Like, truly, society has gone through like so many iterations of life cycles since 2020 that I feel like we are so far removed from everything. But it's critically important for me to remind you, in the United States of America, same-sex marriage was not legal at the Supreme Court level until 2015. For this book to be talking about bisexuality, to be talking about being in love with a woman, wanting to be with a woman in 2017 is truly, actually, a big deal and an uncommon deal. For as much attention as this got, for as big as this was, for everything that it was, when we come back to 2025 and now we're worried about all the crazy stuff that's going on in this country. It's like I don't know how to explain it, but this might feel overplayed if you read something like this in 2025, where you're talking about race and you're talking about gender identity and sexuality and all this other stuff. But in 2017, this was a big deal, right? This was still novel. So I just want to take a second and just say that out loud. If you're younger or if maybe you don't think about it in that context, it is something that is critically important for you to take into consideration. That's all. As Evelyn is collecting herself, she finally takes a breather, tries to get her ducks in a row, opens the door to leave, and Celia is standing in the doorway. And she's like, how did you find me? Celia's like, oh, Ruby told me that you were drinking in the laundry room, but I thought it was a euphemism. Like, what are you doing in here? Evelyn pulls her in the closet. She's like, hey, she told me that you liked women. Is that true? Celia tries to play it off. She's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, why does it matter what Ruby says? Da-da-da-da-da. Eventually, Evelyn kisses Celia. Celia breaks the kiss, wipes her lips. She says, we can't stay here, and leaves. So Evelyn leaves the closet. And then she decides that she's going to go and find Dawn. So she goes upstairs, opens one of the bedroom doors, and wouldn't you know it, he's like tucking his shirt back into his pants, and the woman that was in there with him is also cleaning herself up, and it's very apparent what happened. So she runs out. Dawn follows her, trying to explain, trying to play it off, whatever, but eventually Evelyn just finds Harry and they leave. Harry, offers to drive her home, but she says that she's scared to go home because she's scared of what Don will do when he gets there. Oh my God. So instead, he takes her back to his house, and she kind of admits on the drive that she thinks that she is, quote unquote, like Harry. This is the first time that she has really admitted or agreed to the idea that she might like women. The following morning, Harry drives her back to her house. Dawn is gone. Everything is gone. Like, he has just up and disappeared, but Celia is there at Evelyn's house. So she takes Celia inside, and Celia's trying to apologize and like explain who she is and explain everything that happened. And Evelyn just says, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, I don't love Dawn anymore because you're the only person that I think of. Oh, my heart. My heart can't take it. And so she packs her bags, and in chapter 21, they go to Celia's apartment. I hid out in Celia's apartment for a week and a half in purgatory. Celia and I slept chastely, side by side, in her bed every night. During the day, I stayed in her apartment and read books while she went to work on her new movie for the Warner Brothers. We did not kiss. We occasionally lingered a little too long when our arms brushed, when our hands touched, never locking eyes. But in the middle of the night, after we both had appeared to fall asleep, I would feel her body against my back, and I would push myself into her, feeling the warmth of her stomach against mine, her chin in the crook of my neck. Some mornings I would wake up in a pile of her hair and inhale deeply, trying to breathe in as much of her as I could. I knew that I wanted to kiss her again. I knew that I wanted to touch her, but I didn't know exactly what I was supposed to do or how it was supposed to work. It was easy to think of that one kiss in the dark laundry room as a fluke. It wasn't even that hard to tell myself that the feeling I had for her was simply platonic. As long as I only indulged my thoughts about Celia sometimes, then I could tell myself that it wasn't real. Homosexuals were misfits, and while I didn't think that made them bad people, after all, I loved Harry like a brother, I wasn't ready to be one of them. So I told myself that the spark between Celia and me was just a quirk that we had, which was convincing as long as it remained quirky. Sometimes reality comes crashing down on you. Other times it simply waits patiently for you to run out of the energy it takes to deny it. This playing house thing that they're doing lasts. It's all fun and games until Harry comes over one day and brings over divorce papers from Dawn that he filed on the grounds of abandonment since she left their house and hasn't been back and hasn't reached out to him. Evelyn will get the house and half of his money on the condition that she doesn't tell anyone about what happened during their marriage. And she also learns that Dawn, being the more famous actor and being a man, has told Sunset Studios to essentially sabotage her career and only give her crappy movies. So she has lost everything. She's getting the divorce from the famous guy. She's getting out of these movies. This is going to tarnish her record. She has nothing except for money. She doesn't have a future and career in Hollywood. Like, she lost her dream, right? Everything that she gave up on, all of these things that she's done, it's gone. Other than money and other than Celia. And so in that moment, in this like realization, she says, I don't care, actually. All that matters is my feelings for you. And they are no longer like ashamed of them. Not that Celia ever was, but like Evelyn's no longer in denial about it, and she's more willing to like be open about her feelings for Celia. And so in chapter 22, we're back to the real world, and Monique says, how did you remain so confident, so steadfast in your resolve? When Dawn left me, or when my career went down the tubes? Both, I guess. I mean, you had Celia, so it's a little different, but still. Different from what? I say, lost in my own thoughts. You said I had Celia, so it was different. Different from what? Sorry, I was in my own head. No need to be sorry. Just tell me different from what? From my own impending divorce. Evelyn smiles almost like the Cheshire Cat. Now things are getting interesting. Have you signed the papers? Evelyn asks, perhaps with a tiny heart above the eye in Monique. That's what I would do. I guess I don't take divorce as lightly as you. I say, it comes out flatly. I consider softening, but I don't. No, of course not. Evelyn says kindly, if you did, at your age, you would be a cynic. But at your age? I ask. With my experience? A realist. That in and of itself is awfully cynical, don't you think? Divorce is a loss. Evelyn shakes her head. Heartbreak is a loss. Divorce is a piece of paper. If you are heartbroken right now, then I feel for you deeply. That I have the utmost respect for. That's the sort of thing that can split a person in two. But I wasn't heartbroken when Dawn left me. I simply felt like my marriage had failed. And those are very different things. Oh my God. How do people not like this? I don't understand. Honest to God, again, is it a little contrived? Sure. Does it seem a little played over? Sure. When reading in 2025, again, it's so important to view this in the lens of this being published in 2017, when a lot of these commentary and ideas and whatnot was still not the norm, when this was still a relatively novel idea for a book to talk about so openly, so loudly, so proudly, and so popularly. Like, you know what I mean? Oh, Monique, on her way home that night, gets a call from Frankie, who is like, hey, what's going on with Evelyn? What's happening? Monique decides, I'm just gonna be honest, and tells Frankie what's up. Like, tells her, hey, we're doing an autobiography. She doesn't want to do the piece. Like, sorry, it is what it is. Frankie is insulted and shocked, but Monique will try to get Evelyn to do the cover. Like, she will try to still get Evelyn to do something for Vivant. It just won't be the initial thing that they expected. However, Monique says, I will only do this if you agree that you will promote me. Okay. Reluctantly, Frankie agrees. She doesn't really have a choice because, again, this is such a big deal. Like, interviewing somebody like Evelyn Hugo is such a big deal for the magazine in whatever capacity that they can land. And also, Monique is incredibly talented, and she's not somebody that Frankie wants to lose. And so, girl, she's just like leveraging her freaking talent and like whatever that she has at this company. Again, praise be. Like, I am so proud of her, and I'm proud that, Evelyn had inspired her to be a boss ass bitch. I don't know how you read this type of thing and not be encouraged. Is there problems with Evelyn? Yes. Is she like objectively kind of a monster? Yes. Is she a woman who knew what she wanted and did whatever she had to do to get it? Yes. I don't have to agree with her actions to get there, but I can admire the process and I can admire the drive, and that is something that you can respect and want to emulate. I love that. I love strong, independent women. Monique is riding this high of getting what she wants, and so when she goes back to continue the interview with Evelyn, she tells Evelyn as much. She says, you will do the cover shoot for Vivant or I'm walking. Evelyn agrees almost immediately. She's like, okay, respect, let's do it. Monique, while again very excited about this, is a little shaken up because she's like, this is not something that Evelyn said that she would ever do. The fact that she's willing to do this to bargain with me is a little concerning, right? That means that Evelyn is willing to do whatever in order to keep me on this project. That's a little alarming. Again, we're back to the whole fact of like, what is so special about me personally is Monique's issue. And so as the reader at this point in the book, you're starting to question, okay, is there an ulterior motive, or is Monique just insecure? And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean, like, does she suffer from imposter syndrome? Does she really not understand how good of a writer that she is? Or multitude of other reasons, right? But you just start to kind of get this like weird thought in the back of your head as the reader of like, yeah, why does Evelyn care? Either we have an unreliable narrator, i.e. Monique, or there's something else afoot. Chapter 24, post-divorce from Dawn. It's 1960s. They're at the Oscars. Evelyn has been dropped from her studio. There's no projects on the horizon. Dawn's stardom has only increased. He is like the hot Hollywood guy, and she is just like dying on the vine. Celia gets nominated for the Oscars and goes there without Evelyn because she can't take her as a plus one, right? Like there's issues there, and Evelyn hasn't had any work, so she has nothing that's like being submitted to justify going to the Oscars, right? So she like wasn't invited. So her and Harry stay home and watch the Oscars and just drink and whatever. Evelyn, drinking, watching this, reflecting, realizes how fake Hollywood is and how much she hates it. When Celia wins an Oscar, Evelyn, so excitedly, so drunkenly, rushes up to her TV to kiss Celia as she's giving her Oscar acceptance speech, like slams her face into the TV screen and ends up chipping a tooth. Oh, I kind of love that though. The next two movies that Evelyn does are total flops. And so she not directly gives up on acting, but kind of does, and just focuses on domestic life and, you know what I mean, like running at home and hanging out with Celia and just trying to find comfort in a life and what it means to be alive outside of stardom, outside of Hollywood, right? and decides that she's going to go to Paris. So in chapter 25, while Evelyn is in France, she meets a director named Max Gerard. He offers her a part in one of his films under the condition that she will be topless. This is something that is, I believe at the time, it was a lot more accepted in like Europe, not really in the US. And so it was kind of this bold decision as a US actress. You know what I mean? But not like totally crazy taboo, especially in French films. But it was still a very big deal for something that she chose to do. And so she agrees to do it as long as the camera pans down and then stops before it gets to like her nipples. This works. This sensational scene works. And Evelyn flies up to stardom yet again. This is exactly what her career needed to be rejuvenated. So in chapter 26, 3 articles come out. One of them, a famous singer named Mick Rivera, talks about how he wants to propose to the beautiful, famous Evelyn Hugo. The second article, Evelyn lands the lead role in the famous Russian novel adapted to movie screen film Anna Karenina. Y'all don't understand. I have listened to this man pronounce this name so many times, and I'm just gonna slaughter it. Sorry. So she lands this like titular role, right, in this film. It's a huge deal. It's very exciting. The third article, Don Adler, her ex-husband, the second one, the abusive one, has married Ruby, her friend from the set of Little Women who told her that Celia was a lesbian. That woman marries her abusive ex-husband. Now, Ruby doesn't know that he's abusive at this time. Doesn't know any of that stuff, but still, you want to talk about some backstabby anti-girl code nonsense. They get married. Evelyn gets so excited about this proposal from singer Mick. We'll just call him that. She gets invited to one of his concerts. She goes. She invites Harry and Celia, and they're out there partying, and she's just having such a good time. She's on top of the world. She landed this great role. She finally got this movie thing that's like really launching her popularity again. She's out of this abusive marriage. She's just doing good. So they're at this concert and they're celebrating, and she ends up holding Celia's hand. A woman in the crowd sees. Wouldn't you know it, the articles the following day are talking about speculations about their relationship with hints and claims that obviously they could be lesbians. And so in chapter 27, again, Evelyn, ever concerned with her fame, talks to Celia and she says, hey, we have to get ahead of this. We have to address this. I'm going to go on a date with Mick, the singer-performer guy, so that we can like put all of this to bed. Celia pushes back and she's like, hey, like, let's just be who we are. Like, let's just be open and honest and like have a relationship. Like, who cares? Like, I want to be with you. Like, let's just embrace it. Evelyn pushes back. She's like, we will not be accepted. We will be ostracized. We might even be arrested. This is not an option. But more than that, more than any of that concern, Evelyn is really just concerned about losing her fame. That if they come out and if they do all of this, that they would lose their stardom, which is really what Evelyn prioritizes, right? Celia says that she doesn't care about stardom. She doesn't care about fame. She doesn't care about any of that, that she would give it all up to be with Evelyn. And so with that, eventually, Celia concedes and she says, okay, do what you need to do so that we can stay together. That's fine. It is a very tough decision on both of these women. I feel horrible for both of them. It is just bad. Celia agrees. She says, okay, Evelyn, I don't agree with what you're doing. I love you so much, though, that do whatever you need to do. Do whatever to make it comfortable so that we can make this work. Chapter 28, Evelyn, long story short, tricks Mick, the singer guy, into going to Las Vegas with her and eloping. Pretty much like gets him drunk enough and cons him into getting married. They, under the context or under the pretext, I guess, that she won't sleep with him until they're married. That she only sleeps with people that she's married to. So they elope, they do the whole like Elvis wedding type thing. They hook up that night. The following morning, they hook up again, and she tries to be the most uninterested, anti-spicy time, grumpy, like nagging woman that she possibly can, to the point that Mick voices regrets about the previous night and doing all that stuff, and that he wants an annulment. And so That's what they do. It's literally a 1-chapter marriage. And so at the end of it, when he's like, yeah, I think we're going to go ahead and get an annulment, she says, okay, and goes on to sob and throw the telephone and be dramatic and throw things to make this impression on him, like so crazy, so that he'll go to the tabloids and talk about this crazy night with Evelyn Hugo and how blah, 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 that she is. And it works. And chapter 23, the news articles have completely stopped talking about her and Celia because now they're talking about her and her yet another failed marriage. This buys the women some time. However, Evelyn finds out that she's pregnant with Mick's kid. Mick the singer's kid. Her divorced husband number 4? I don't know what one we're on. This is the moment that Celia realizes that Evelyn actually slept with Mick. She thought that it was all for show. She did not realize that they slept together. Evelyn did not reveal this. Celia's heartbroken, understandably so, packs her bags and leaves. She doesn't want to hear it. There's no excuse. She doesn't care. She's like, you cheated on me. Like, we agreed to certain terms and conditions, and it was something I already wasn't comfortable with, and you cheated on me. Like, you did this. I'm done. Like, I can't do this. And leaves. Evelyn, heartbroken, pregnant with a random man's kid, reaches out to Harry. Harry drives her to Mexico. She gets an abortion because she can't do it in the US because it will undoubtedly hit the tabloids. So they drive out of the country to do so. They drive back home, and Harry stays with her and comforts her and helps her heal from this procedure. She's lost in the world. She's so depressed. But in that moment, she realizes that at least she has Harry. Like, at least she has a family in him and that everything will be okay. Because at least she has Harry. When we got to my house, Harry tucked me into bed and then went downstairs and made me dinner. That night, he slept in the bed next to me. And when I woke up, he was opening the blinds. Rise and shine, little bird, he said. I did not speak to Celia for 5 years after that. She did not call. She did not write. And I could not bring myself to reach out to her. I knew how she was doing from only what people said in the papers and what sort of gossip was running around town. But that first morning, as the sunlight shone on my face and I still felt exhausted from the trip to Mexico, I was actually okay. Because I had Harry. For the first time in a very long time, I felt that I had a family. You do not know how fast you have been running, how hard you have been working, how truly exhausted you are, until someone stands behind you and says, it's okay, you can fall down now, I'll catch you. So I fell down, and Harry caught me. My heart. Chapter 30, I'll just read it to you because it's literally a page and a half. And cut back to real time, real day, current day. This is Monique responding to Evelyn's story. You and Celia didn't have any contact at all? I asked. Evelyn shakes her head. She stands up and walks over to the window and opens it a crack. The breeze that streams in is welcome. When she sits back down, she looks at me, ready to move on to something else, but I'm too baffled. How long were the two of you together by that point? 3 years? Evelyn says, just about. And she left? Without another word? Evelyn nods. Did you try to call her? She shakes her head. I didn't know it yet that it was okay to grovel for something that you really want. I thought that if she didn't want me, if she didn't understand why I did what I did, then I didn't need her. And you were okay? No. I was miserable. I was hung up on her for years. I mean, sure, I spent my time having fun, don't get me wrong, but Celia was nowhere in sight. In fact, I would read copies of Sub Rosa, that's the name of the gossip magazine, because Celia's picture was in them, analyzing the other people with her in the photos, wondering who they were to her, how she knew them. I know now that she was just as heartbroken as I was, that somewhere in her head she was waiting for me to call her and apologize. But at the time, I just ached all alone. Do you regret that you didn't call her? I ask, that you lost some time? Evelyn looks at me as if I'm stupid. She's gone now, Evelyn says. The love of my life is gone, and I can't just call her and say I'm sorry and have her come back. She's gone forever. So, yes, Monique, that is something that I do regret. I regret every second that I didn't spend with her. I regret every stupid thing that I did that caused her an ounce of pain. I should have chased her down the street the day that she left me. I should have begged her to stay. I should have apologized and sent roses and stood on top of the Hollywood sign and shouted, "I'm in love with Celia St. James," and let them crucify me for it. That's what I should have done. And now that I don't have her, and I have more money than I could ever use in this lifetime, and my name is cemented in Hollywood history, and I know how hollow it is, I'm kicking myself for every single second that I chose it over loving her proudly. But that's a luxury. You can do what you want when you're rich and famous. You can decide that wealth and renown are worthless when you have them. Back then, I still thought I had all the time I needed to do everything I wanted. That if I just played my cards right, I could have it all. You thought she'd come back to you. I knew she would come back to me, and she knew it too. We both knew that our time wasn't over. I hear the distant sound of my phone, but it isn't the familiar tone of my regular text message. It's the beep I set just for David. Last year when I got the phone, just after we were married, when it never occurred to me that he would ever stop texting. I looked down briefly to see his name, and beneath it, "I think we should talk. This is too huge, Em. It's happening too fast. We have to talk about it." I put it out of my mind instantly. "So, you knew she was coming back to you, but you married Rex North anyway?" I ask, refocused. Evelyn lowers her head for a moment, preparing to explain herself. "Anna Karenina was way over budget. We were weeks behind schedule. Rex was Count Vronsky. By the time the director's cut came in, we knew the entire thing had to be re-edited, and we needed to bring someone else in to save it. And you had a stake in the box office. Both Harry and I. It was his first movie after leaving Sunset Studios. If it flopped, he would have a hard time getting another meeting in town. And you? What would happen to you if it flopped? If my first project after Bout and Train didn't do well, I was worried that I'd be a flash in the pan. I'd risen from the ashes more than once by that point, but I didn't want to have to do it again. So I did the one thing that I knew that would get people desperate to see the movie. I married Count Vronsky." So we begin the next section, which is her next marriage, to the clever Rex North. Chapter 31, Evelyn and Rex get married. The hype works. The movie is a hit. Everything is going really, really well. However, they both know that the marriage is a facade. Like, they're not actually attracted to each other in that way. They don't actually, want to settle down and be monogamous or anything in that regard. And so they get married under the pretext that they will continue to live entirely separate lives, which is fine. Okay, that's all good, all good. During this time, though, Evelyn has hired a maid named Luisa from El Salvador. She speaks Spanish, obviously, to her mother, not realizing that Evelyn understands what she's saying. So Luisa is telling her mother how crazy this woman is. When Evelyn responds in Spanish, she's blown away. And so Evelyn's like, I'm Cuban. Luisa's response is, "You don't look Cuban." And she gets incredibly offended by this. She's like, how dare she take away my identity? How dare she take this piece away from me? But she also, kind of in the same breath, recognizes that she has hidden who she is from the world. And this, as I stated earlier, right, with Monique and her being black and then not really claiming that after her father died, Evelyn hiding her Cuban heritage, hiding her bisexuality. There's this reoccurring theme about hiding who you really are and hiding your identity and presenting one way to the world versus what you identify with versus who you really are. All three of those can be different things, or any combination of those three things can happen. And so a lot of this book is realizing the desire for authenticity, for the personal recognition of this is who I am and accepting that, and then also accepting the judgment and challenge and loving yourself despite what the outside world thinks of who you are and who you have accepted yourself to be, right? This is just another layer of that. So talking to Luisa, she gains this respect for her. She is admirable about how much Luisa is proud to be El Salvadorian and how much that she speaks Spanish and how much that she just embraces her heritage and who she is and everything like that. And it, kind of teaches this lesson to Evelyn. And she, grows on to cherish her as a maid. The only other thing that happens in this chapter is that it has been announced that Celia has married a quarterback named John Braverman. Obviously, Evelyn is a little upset about this. In chapter 33, the plan was for Rex and Evelyn to only stay married for a couple months to get through the movie. But they had been offered, like, I think it was like a 4-movie deal or something from the studio because it was so good. So now Rex and Evelyn have to continue to be married and maintain this marriage for a number of years while they continue to create these very, like, high-grossing films. It comes to a head, though, when the third film is about the two of them having affairs and, like, falling in love with their affair partners. Turns out it happened in real life. Rex ends up hooking up with the movie star who is his affair partner in the movie, gets her pregnant. So instead of having that come out being this, like, tragic news cycle thing before the movie, Evelyn decides that she is going to kind of stage an affair with her friend Harry. And that way, you know, they can both have affairs, and that will be like the ultimate advertisement for the current movie. That's the plan. So she talks to Harry about it. Harry says, we can do it, that's fine, but I just want to let you know he's gay, which we all kind of knew. Evelyn knew this for a long time, but he says, I'm dating John Braverman. He's dating Celia's husband. Their relationship is a beard, is the term that is used in the book and that would be used today, which would be like a gay man and a gay woman, or even a straight woman, like married to kind of cover for each other's sexuality in whatever way that it is. In this sense, it's a gay man and a gay woman married to, like, save face, quote unquote. Okay, so it's a beard relationship. Evelyn realizes this and she's like, oh my God, I thought she was actually, like, in love and in this relationship. If that's the case, I want to reach back out to Celia. But she kind of sits on this and decides instead that she's going to call Ruby, the backstabbing woman who ended up marrying Don Adler, right? Calls Ruby. Ruby is pissed that Evelyn didn't give her a heads up that Don was abusive. Okay, you know what? The audacity, but also, again, girl looking out for girl, like, girl's girl. Yeah, she probably should have given her a heads up, but also in Hollywood and with the backstabbing and the drama and the news articles and her going behind her back and marrying him anyway, did she even have a chance to? And if she did tell Ruby, would she have been listened to, or would it have ended up another tabloid? Damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? Truly, there was no right answer there. So anyway, Evelyn calls Ruby and she says, hey, I need you to call the tabloids, tell them to drive down this particular street. I'm going to be, like, pretending to hook up with Harry. Ruby begrudgingly says, okay. So that's how the chapter ends. The paparazzi find Harry and Evelyn in a quote unquote compromising position. Cue chapter 34. They have orchestrated this affair thing. Harry, though, offers. He's like, hey, what if we turn this affair into an actual marriage? I want to have a kid one day. And I know that you would be a great partner. I know that you would be a great mother. We've been friends forever. Why don't we just, like, pull the trigger? Like, let's just get married. She agrees to this. The photos hit the tabloids, and her film with Rex break records for the longest stay in theaters. Everything is on the up and up. The interview ends. Chapter 35 is just, like, between interviews, Monique gets home really late, talks to her mom about getting the promotion, hunky-dory, happy news, nothing crazy. We go back to the story time, which is what I'm really invested in. I don't give a shit about Monique. I don't think I'm supposed to say that. Yeah, whatever. I don't care. I'm here for the Hollywood drama. Harry and Evelyn go to the Academy Awards. Celia is there. This is the first time that she has seen Celia in 5 years. She is, like, her breath is taken away. Celia is beautiful. Just can't take her eyes off of this woman, right? Evelyn loses her nomination to Ruby, that we brought up before. She's heartbroken. She's crushed. She rushes to the bathroom to go and cry. Celia goes into the bathroom to comfort her. They end up apologizing to each other, owning up to their mistakes, saying, like, hey, we're both guilty of this. I'm so sorry. I love you so much. We should be together. They end up hooking up in the bathroom at the Academy Awards with the idea, the notion, the knowledge, the acknowledgement that they could be busted at any moment, that they could be caught for doing this in this bathroom, and also accepting in that moment that they are willing to risk anything to be together. Chapter 37, Evelyn and Harry get married. Celia and John are already married. They all move out to New York. They get apartments next door to each other, and they are the quote four beards. Celia and Evelyn begin their relationship again. John and Harry continue theirs, right? Everybody's happy. Everything's going great. They can finally like be who they are, love each other, everything. They've got this perfect cover. Everything's great. Everything's going so well. Everyone's happy. It literally could not be any better until the Stonewall riots begin. Need I say more? They are in New York. They are gay couples in New York directly faced with the Stonewall riots. Evelyn continues, all of them really continue to be challenged by this idea of we are these big names in Hollywood. If we come out as gay or like, you know, on the like LGBT spectrum in any way, we will be ostracized by the industry, right? Just, it's a fact of life. So instead of marching and helping out and doing all these things that Celia wants to do, that John wants to do, that Harry wants to do, Evelyn is like, we can't. So they donate money instead. And Evelyn just has this guilt in her that is festering that like people are willing to die for what she hides. And it talks about, interestingly enough, it talks about how they were so open about supporting the civil rights movement, but how it's difficult because it's like, it's one thing to support others and to say how much like freedom that they want and like deserve and whatever, and we all deserve to be treated like human beings and be respected and blah, blah, blah. It's another thing to be so openly politically, like to be a political activist for something that you identify with, because it gives almost a piece of yourself away. To say like, I support queer people, almost inherently people assume that you are queer. Like there's not this allyship, especially back in that time, right? And so they end up faced with this, again, damned if you do, damned if you don't, catch-22. Like, what do you do? So they just donated money behind the scenes, right? And Evelyn is just dealing with this guilt. And this is kind of what I talked about earlier, of this idea of like, to be someone who is in the closet, and then you see people who are so openly and proudly who they are, what they are, loving who they are, loving who they want, and being open about it, there's a shame that kind of comes with that, and this like almost embarrassment of you don't actually feel queer or like queer enough. I'm not gay enough. I'm not a good enough gay to say these things or to be this way, right? It's this really difficult aspect of one's identity, and it's a difficult thing to come to terms with. I can only imagine how significantly worse those things were to come to terms with in the 1960s. Like, God, right? But they continue to live very, very happily together, but they do continue to face the same issues. Celia is continually hurt by Evelyn's desire to hide their relationship. She's also insecure about Evelyn's previous relationships with men, and Evelyn feels that Celia doesn't understand who she is, and that Celia is like resentful of her bisexuality. So, oh my God, probably the worst thing I've ever read. This makes me so sad. Celia won her second Oscar in 1970 for her role as the woman who cross-dresses, serves as a World War I soldier in the film Our Men. I could not be in Los Angeles with her that night because I was shooting Jade Diamond in Miami. I was playing a prostitute living in the same apartment as a drunk. But Celia and I both knew that even if I had been free as a bird, I could not go to the Academy Award on her arm. That evening, Celia called me after she was home from the ceremony and all the parties. I screamed into the phone. I was so happy for her. You've done it. You've done it. I've said twice now, you've done it. Can you believe it? 2 of them. You deserve them. The whole world should be giving you an Oscar every day as far as I'm concerned. I wish you were here, she said petulantly. I could tell that she had been drinking. I would have been drinking too if I had been in her position, but I was irritated that she had to make things so difficult. I wanted to be there. Didn't she know that? Didn't she know I couldn't be there, that it killed me? Why did it always have to be about what all of this felt like for her? I wish I was too, I told her, but it's better this way, you know that. Yes, so people won't know that you're a lesbian. I hated being called a lesbian, not because I thought that there was anything wrong with loving a woman, mind you. No, I'd come to terms with that a long time ago. But Celia saw things in black and white. She liked women and only women, and I liked her. And so often she denied the rest of me. She liked to ignore the fact that I had truly loved Don Adler once. She liked to ignore the fact that I had made love to men and enjoyed it. She liked to ignore it until the very moment that she decided to be threatened by it. That seemed to be her pattern. I was a lesbian when she loved me and a straight woman when she hated me. Oh my God! I was a lesbian when she loved me and a straight woman when she hated me. Jesus Christ. Dude, even reading that a second time for the sake of, like, making a point, yeah, the way that hurts me. People were just starting to talk about the idea of bisexuality, but I'm not sure I even understood the word referred to me then. I wasn't interested in finding a label for what I already knew. I loved men. I loved Celia. I was okay with that. Celia, stop it. I'm sick of this conversation. You're being a brat. She laughed coldly. Exactly the same Evelyn that I've been dealing with for years. Nothing's changed. You're afraid of who you are and you still don't have an Oscar. You are exactly what you've always been. A nice pair of tits. I let the silence hang in the air for a moment. The buzz of the phone was the only sound either of us could hear. And then Celia started crying. I'm so sorry, she said. I should have never said anything like that. I don't even mean it. I'm so sorry. I've had too much to drink and I miss you, and I'm sorry I said something so terrible. It's fine, I said. I should be going. It's late here, you understand? Congratulations again, sweetheart. I hung up before she could reply. That was how it was with Celia. When you denied her what she wanted, when you hurt her, she made sure that you hurt too. I don't have anything to say. I hope you're watching this visually, at least to see the motions while I make these noises. Oh my God, this is so painful. This is so painful. And so in chapter 38, Monique is like, so did you say anything back? Like, how did you respond to these, like, negative comments? Did you ever call her on it? I asked Evelyn. There's no point in fighting with Celia once she got mean. If things got too tense, I tended to back off before they came to a head. I would tell her I loved her and I couldn't live without her, and then I'd take my top off, and that usually ended the conversation. For all her posturing, Celia had one thing in common with almost every straight man in America. She wanted nothing more than to get her hands on my chest. Did it stick to you, though? Those words? Of course it did. Look, I'd be the first person to say back when I was that young that all I was a nice pair of tits. The only currency I had was my sexuality, and I used it like money. I wasn't well educated when I got to Hollywood. I wasn't book smart. I wasn't powerful. I wasn't a trained actress. What did I have to be good at other than being beautiful? And taking pride in your beauty is a damning act, because you allow yourself to believe that the only thing notable about yourself is something with a very short shelf life. When Celia said that to me, I had crossed into my 30s. I wasn't sure I had many more good years left, to be honest. I thought, sure, Celia would keep getting work because people were hiring her for her talent. I wasn't so sure that they would continue hiring me once the wrinkles set in, once my metabolism slowed. So yeah, it hurt a lot. But you had to know that you were talented. You had been nominated for an Academy Award 3 times by that point. You're using reason. It doesn't always work. I don't know how people read this and don't like it. I don't know how people read this and aren't like, oh my God. Is it bad? Yes. Are the relationships bad? Yes. Is everybody deeply unlikable in the way that they treat each other? Deeply unlikable and not appropriate and abusive and like uncool and immature? Yes. Does that stem from internalized homophobia and internalized, like, pressures set upon you by society? Yes! Especially when you're in Hollywood and there's, like, a very set standard of who you should be and what you should look like and what you should do and what you should say and how you should appear to people. Yes! What do you mean? I don't understand. I'm so upset. Chapter 39. Harry and Evelyn are talking. It is Evelyn's 36th birthday, and Harry says, hey, I think that we should try to have a biological child. I think it's time, and I think it would be a good thing for us. Evelyn debates this and realizes that she thinks that she's ready for a child as well. So they will have to consult their partners appropriately, right? It's not just the two of them. They have to consult the other 2 people in this relationship. So in chapter 40, Evelyn talks to Celia about it, and she's like, hey, we'll have the baby. Harry and I will raise them. You and John can be like as involved as you want to be. You can do whatever you want. Like, we can continue our relationship. Like, you don't have to be in the baby's life, but this is something that like he and I want really, really badly. Celia is hesitant about it at first, mostly because she's insecure, because she would not be able to give Evelyn a child. Like, biologically, that's just not a thing that she would be able to do for Evelyn. And so she reassures her. She's like, I'm happy with you. I love you so much. I'm so fulfilled in our relationship. Everything is like good. We are good. I want a kid, and this is the only way that I would be able to have one. And rock in a hard place, my guy. Celia eventually agrees. Evelyn is incredibly excited. Evelyn and Harry have a daughter. Her name is Connor. When she's born, they spend the first few months enjoying her. Celia and John are doing a movie out of the country, I believe. They're gone for a while. So it's just Harry and Evelyn raising their daughter in domestic bliss. They're getting used to each other. They are truly living as husband and wife and mother and father, and are falling more and more in love. Platonic love, but love nonetheless. And Harry at one point calls Evelyn his soulmate, one of his soulmates. Ugh. Eventually, Celia and John return. They try to get back into those routines, and it's a little bit of like a friction point learning curve of Harry's not my actual husband, like Celia is kind of the husband, but Harry's the father, and coming into this like dynamic. But they end up learning it, and Celia pushes Evelyn to go back into filming and to go back into being the movies. And Evelyn realizes that Celia wants to date a bombshell. Like, she wants to date, you know, the big famous actress and all this stuff. And the domesticity isn't necessarily what Celia wanted. Back in the day, the argument from Evelyn was like, I don't want to be with you because I want to be the bombshell. Celia's argument is, I want to be with you openly and for you to be a bombshell. And so now Evelyn has this like extra hoop to jump through, this extra like layer of what she wants versus what this old her wanted versus what Celia wanted versus like all this other stuff, where they all want to be successful, but some of their wants are shifting, and some of the like wanting to be good enough for your partners and have a kid, and just this like complicated relationship dynamics, and this like human freaking nature of like wanting multiple things. And like, like the Sylvia Plath thing about the fig tree in the bell sprout jar, in the bell jar. You know what I'm talking about? If you don't know, I'll be doing a classical rant review on the bell jar next month. It's so good. Point being is like Sylvia Plath is sitting in a fig tree, and every single one of the figs is a different life that she would have lived. And she is so frozen on picking one of the figs that by the time that she even thinks about actually firmly deciding on one of them, they all rot away. Do you want to be a bombshell? Do you want to be a mother? Do you want to be openly gay? Do you want to do XYZ? It's like all of these things are presented in front of her, and you can't have all of them. Not in that day, not in that time, not in how society is. And it's just sad and rough. Celia pushes her to go back into film. She's like, hey, you need to get back into filming. You need to go back into actress work. That's where you're happy. That's where you thrive. Evelyn calls Max. That was the guy who she did the French film with, like the topless one that like, she was the phoenix rising out of her career, like the first time or whatever. Max Gerard calls him. He says, yeah, I got a movie. You can be the leading lady in it. I'm so excited you called me. However, potential breaker. The opposite of her, the main male character, the main male lead is Don Adler. What do you mean? Fuck. Chapter 42, Monique is wondering why Evelyn would even entertain the idea of doing a movie with her abuser. Evelyn's like, it's more complicated than that. Like, it's complex, right? There's a lot of things to it. Like, yes, he did those horrible things to me, but I loved him. And also, he'd been going through a lot of hard times lately. I heard that he was an alcoholic. He hasn't had any good films. Like, there was a large piece of me that didn't forgive him, but also felt bad for him. Ultimately, she decides to meet with him and talk to him about the film, which is what she does in chapter 43. And so for the first time in 15 years, Evelyn meets with her second husband, her abusive husband, Don Adler. They meet in a deli, and he apologizes immediately, like essentially sobbing, recognizing the harm that he's done. swears that he's working on getting sober, about working on his anger, and Evelyn does not forgive him, but also realizes in that moment that she's not afraid of him and that she doesn't hate him. Chapter 44. It is Harry's 45th birthday. Celia, John, Harry, Evelyn, and Connor, right, Harry and Evelyn's daughter, go to Central Park. They have a picnic celebrating his birthday, and Evelyn looks back on this moment and thinks that this is the last time that they were truly, genuinely happy as a family. Chapter 45, Dawn and Evelyn are shooting the movie. It is about a man who suffers from addiction and the woman who loves him. Max Gerard, the same guy who in the first film proposed that she does like a topless shoot, in this one proposes the idea that it is like a full-on spicy scene that she fakes, like, you know, like reaching completion on film. That this would be like a revolutionary thing. It would be crazy and it would rock the world, and she's about it. Evelyn wants to do this for the fact of, yeah, you know, for so long I, you know, settled for spice and I never really came to terms that I could enjoy it. Like, I want to set the precedent for these women, set the example for these women that they can enjoy it, and this is what enjoying spice is, right? There's a level of respect there that I have for that type of action. However, Evelyn agrees to this scene before talking to Celia about it. Instead, she goes through with the scene. They film it. It's going into the movie. She comes home. She talks to Celia and she's like, yeah, you know, they proposed this like crazy thing. Like, what would you think about it if I were to do a scene like that on TV or like on the movies? Celia says, yeah, I understand why you would want to do something like that. And I agree. Like, that's important for TV. It's important for, like, you know, society and setting a tone and blah, 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 blah. But I don't think I'm comfortable with you portraying that sort of thing with your ex-husband. And with saying that, Celia feels so guilty. She feels so guilty for telling Evelyn no, and for saying, like, for squashing her career and telling her that she can't do something. Like, Celia feels like such an absolute jealous piece of crap for limiting Evelyn's talents. She just like breaks down hysterically and she's like, I'll work with you on the next movies and I'll make sure that you have the most success and like blah 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 blah, like we'll bounce back from this. Like, I'm so sorry. Evelyn, eventually seeing her breakdown, says, I've already done the scenes, and starts sobbing. Celia leaves. She packs her bags and leaves, saying that she is no longer willing to be half heartbroken all the time. Weeks later, John receives divorce papers from Celia in the mail, which is ultimately divorce papers to Evelyn. Celia is done with their relationship yet again because Evelyn has chosen fame over her yet again. Oh, it's so sad. Don gets an Oscar for his role in the film. Evelyn gets snubbed. And so she is angry to this day, to the day of this interview, to this biography, that she gave up her relationship for Celia for a movie that didn't even get her a freaking Oscar. She gave up everything that she loved to not even be recognized by the industry for it, but the man got the reward. The abusive piece of crap man got the award. Monique, counters this. She's trying to soothe Evelyn, and she's like, hey, I think you're being a little bit hard on yourself here. Evelyn says, the interview's not over yet. You're gonna change your mind about me. Girl, what the hell does that mean? Okay, I guess. In chapter 47, it's 1980. John dies. Celia's ex-husband, Harry's longtime lover, dies of a heart attack. Harry, obviously, is devastated. He starts drinking heavily, and Evelyn is concerned because, of course, she is. God bless. This is what I mean about, she's not a likable character. Her main concern is that Harry's, grief, his reaction to John dying, will stir up rumors. But she also knows, better than to push him. She knows better. Thank fucking God. At least she knows better than to bring this up to Harry. So she just kind of lets him cope with it. But when they go to the funeral, she sees Celia. This time, though, she refuses to talk to her. And Connor, Evelyn and Harry's daughter, oh, this hurts me so much, recognizes Celia at the funeral, but she recognizes her as one of the women that played in the movie Little Women, not as a woman who raised her, not as her mother's partner. And Evelyn realizes in that moment that their family is truly gone. In chapter 48, Evelyn and Harry make another one of Max's movies. Evelyn is the lead role in this one, and this time she does get an Oscar. Finally, this freaking woman finally gets an Oscar. And during her acceptance speech, she makes a very ambiguous thank you to Celia. After the movies, after the Oscars, whatever, she's going out with Max Gerard, the director. They're getting hamburgers. Everybody is starting to recognize Evelyn, and they're like, oh my God, sign this, this is so crazy. Max throws her over his shoulders and leaves the restaurant with her. It's this like whirlwind romance. They get into the car. He's like, oh my God, I love you. You're so beautiful. You're so talented. I've loved you for years. And in chapter 50, Evelyn decides to end their session and Monique heads home. When she gets there, David, her husband that she is separated from, who has asked to not get divorced and whatnot, is in her apartment. And he again reiterates, hey, we made a mistake. Like, we need to stay together. We're going too fast at this. And she disagrees and has the following thought. When I met him, as we fell in love, I remember thinking the fact that he was white made me think that he would never tell me I wasn't black enough. I think of Evelyn the first time she heard her maid speaking Spanish. I remember thinking the fact that he wasn't that well-read meant that he would never think I was a bad writer. I think of Celia telling Evelyn that she wasn't a good actress. I remember thinking the fact that I was clearly the more attractive one made me feel better, because I thought that meant he would never leave. I think of how Dawn treated Evelyn despite her being arguably the most beautiful woman in the world. Evelyn rose to those challenges. But looking at David now, I can see that I have hidden from mine, perhaps my entire life. And she realizes that she doesn't love David. You know, maybe she loved David for the wrong reasons, and she suspects that he also doesn't love her, that he too loved her for the wrong reasons, and they got things from each other that benefited their egos or supported them in one way or another that wasn't inherently because of love. It wasn't out of respect. It wasn't out of admiration. It was out of like self-gratification and like boosting one's own ego, right? In whatever way that may be. So realizing this, David leaves for good, and Monique sleeps well for the first time since their separation. In chapter 51, Evelyn talks to Harry about the proposal from Max that happened at the like diner, you know what I mean? Like after the fact when they like ran off together. He's supportive. You know, he's like, hey, we deserve to be in love. You know, we have Connor. Like, I promise to always love you. I promise to always be supportive of you. Like, we will always be best friends. Yeah, we deserve to find love. So with his blessing, she actually starts to talk to Max about genuinely getting married. He goes on to reiterate his like passionate feelings for her and how amazing she is and how obsessed with her that he has been. She's loving it, and they make love. And she accepts his proposal. So now we get into the next husband, the disappointing Max Gerard. They get married in the desert. It's very quaint. It's very small. It's very cute. But immediately after they get married and return to New York, he starts to change. He was very excited with the idea of Evelyn, with the glitz and the glam of being married to the most famous actress, with who he had her play in his movies. I thought I could finally have a meaningful marriage with someone. With Max, I thought that something might change, something might click, something might make him see me as I truly was and love me for it. I thought maybe I could love the real him enough that he would start loving the real me. Sorry. My heart! I thought maybe I could love the real him enough that he would start loving the real me. I thought I could finally have a meaningful marriage with someone, but that never happened. Instead, Max paraded me around town like the trophy I was. Everyone wanted Evelyn Hugo, and Evelyn Hugo wanted him. The girl in Bow to End Train. That's the French one. It was the first movie. I'm sorry. I'm ignorant. I don't know French. Mesmerized everybody. Even the man who created her, and I didn't know how to tell him that I loved her too, but I wasn't her. Yet another marriage is just loveless and sad. She just can't find that love with someone. In chapter 53, it's 1988. Celia wins another Oscar. And in her Oscar speech, she makes a comment about anyone tempted to kiss the TV to not chip a tooth. The way I want to cry, it's a reference to Evelyn, the first time that Celia won a freaking Oscar and she kissed the TV and chipped her tooth. Knowing that Celia means her, Evelyn writes her a letter. They write back and forth to each other, each of themselves, like blaming themselves about what happened and the falling out and whatever, and admitting that they still have feelings. And Evelyn wants to meet, but Celia is yet again upset and disappointed when she learns that this marriage to Max Gerard was not a beard, right? Max is straight. They got married because they liked each other, and this yet again goes to Celia's concern as like a lesbian dating a bisexual woman and being intimidated about Evelyn marrying a man or being attracted to a man. And so it kind of sparks this like whole other issue between the two of them, but they do end up meeting and hoping that they can reunite. This time when they start talking again, Celia's hesitant about restarting their relationship for a couple of reasons, but really the primary one being that she is suffering from chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. I probably won't make it much past 60, which means that she really only has like a decade left of her life. Evelyn says, okay, I don't care. I want to be with you. Like, I want to make this work. Like, even if it means losing you for good, I want to be with you. Oh my God, right? Jesus, the instant tears in my eyes, dude. So they reconcile. They determine, like, what are we going to do next? And this time it's up to Celia. Evelyn just gives up the reins. She says, hey, you tell me what to do. I'm willing to do anything to be with you. Please, for the love of God, just what do you need? What do you want? The idea is they will stage Evelyn having an affair with a young congressman, and that will like spark the rumors to get any type of question about them having an affair, like Celia and Evelyn having an affair, out of the news cycle. She'll be able to divorce Max. Everything will be good. Turns out the young congressman, the 29-year-old, is Celia's younger brother, Robert. Upon this affair, upon the divorce, upon everything, Celia, Harry, Evelyn, Connor, the daughter, and Robert, Celia's brother, will all fly out and go to Spain with the idea that Evelyn will marry Robert, Celia's brother, so that she wouldn't risk losing Connor because of X, Y, and Z, like blah, 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 everything kind of going on, even though she technically had the kid with Harry. She's a divorced woman. I don't know, drama. She has to be married to a man because God forbid a woman actually be like individually independent and single parents for children, whatever, stupid shit. I don't know. What do you want me to say? So these 5 people, they move out to Spain. That's the plan, that they're going to go out there. Chapter 56. Harry wasn't on board. He was the one piece of the plan that wasn't up to me. The one person I wasn't willing to manipulate into doing what I wanted him to do. And he didn't want to leave everything behind and fly off to Europe. You're suggesting I retire, Harry said, and I'm not even 60 yet. My God, Evelyn, what on earth am I going to do all day? Play cards on the beach? That doesn't sound nice. It sounds nice for about an hour and a half, he said. He was drinking what looked like orange juice, but I suspected was a screwdriver. And I'd be stuck trying to occupy myself for the rest of my life. We were sitting in my dressing room on the set of Teresa's Wisdom. Harry had found the script and sold it to Fox with me attached to the play. Teresa, a woman who was leaving her husband while desperately trying to keep her children together. It was the 3rd day of shooting, and I was in costume. A white Chanel pantsuit and pearls, about to go on set to shoot the scene where Teresa and her husband announced that they are divorcing over Christmas dinner. Harry looked as handsome as ever, in khaki slacks and an Oxford shirt. He had gone almost entirely gray by then, and I actively resented him for growing more attractive as he aged, while I had to watch my value disappear by the day like a molding lemon. Harry, don't you want to stop living this lie? What lie? He asked. I understand it's a lie for you because you want to make it work with Celia. And you know I support that, I do. But this life isn't a lie for me. There are men, I said, my voice losing patience as if Harry was trying to pull one over on me. Don't pretend there aren't men. Sure, but there's not a single man anyone could draw any sort of meaningful connection to, Harry said, because I have only loved John and he's gone. I'm only famous because you're famous, Ev. They don't care about me or what I'm doing unless it somehow relates to you. Any men in my life, I see them for a few weeks and then they're gone. I'm not living a lie, I'm just living my life. Don't you care that I have to hide? I do. You know I do. Well, then, but why does your relationship with Celia mean that we should uproot Connor's life and mine? She's the love of my life. You know that. I want to be with her. It's time for us to all be together again. We can't be together again, he said, putting his hand down on the table. Not all of us. And he walked away. Harry and I were flying home for the weekend to be with Connor, and during the weeks that we shot, I was with Celia, and he was, well, I didn't know where he was, but he seemed happy, so I didn't question it. I suspected in the back of my mind that he might have met someone who was capable of keeping his interest for more than a few days. So when Teresa's wisdom went 3 weeks over our shooting schedule and my co-star, Ben Madley, was hospitalized for exhaustion, I was torn. On one hand, I wanted to go back to being with my daughter every night. On the other hand, Connor was growing more and more annoyed by me every day. She found her mother to be the very epitome of embarrassment. The fact that I was a well-renowned film star seemed to have absolutely no effect on how big of an idiot Connor saw me to be. So I was often happier in LA with Celia than I was in New York, constantly rejected by my own flesh and blood. But I would have dropped it all in a heartbeat if I thought Connor might want even an evening of my time. So she continues to work on this, having this back and forth with Harry. Eventually he's like, hey, I have an idea. Instead of going to Europe, we all move to LA and Celia marries a friend of mine and we do it that way. A friend of yours? I've met someone. What? We met on the lot. He's working on another production. I thought it was just a casual thing. I think he did too, but I think this is the man I could see my life with. I was so happy for him in that moment. I thought you couldn't see yourself with anyone. I couldn't, he said. He goes on to explain that, he's fallen in love. So she's like, okay, so if we go to LA, we do all this stuff. I don't want to act anymore. He says, you don't have to act anymore. You can just spend time with Celia and she just marries my friend and we can all just hang out and it's fine. We have enough money. Like, he and I will continue working. Like, we can make it work. She says, okay, we'll talk about it later. He says, okay, will you at least pick me up tonight? Pick me up at my place and we'll talk about it. She agrees. My driver, who introduced himself as Nick as I got into the back of the car, picked me up around 9 in the evening. To the airport? Nick said. Actually, we're going to make a stop on the West End first, I said, giving him the address of the home where Harry was staying. We made our way across town, through the seedy parts of Hollywood, over the Sunset Strip. I found myself depressed about how unseemly Los Angeles had gotten since I'd left. It was similar to Manhattan in that regard. The decades had not been good to it. Harry was talking about raising Connor here, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we needed to leave both big cities for good. As we stopped at the red light close to Harry's rented home, Nick turned around briefly and smiled at me. He had a square jaw and a crew cut. I could tell he had probably bedded a number of women based on his smile alone. I'm an actor, he said, just like you. I smiled politely. Nice work if you can get it. He nodded. I got an agent this week, he said as we started moving again. I feel like I'm really on my way, but, if we get to the airport with enough time to spare, I'd be interested for any tips that you have for somebody starting out. I said, looking out of the window. I decided as we drove up in the dark, winding streets of Harry's neighborhood that if Nick asked me again after we got to the airport, I was going to tell him that it's mostly luck, and that you have to be willing to deny your heritage, to commodify your body, to lie to good people, to sacrifice who you love in the name of what people will think, and choose the false version of yourself time and time again until you forget who you started out as or why you started doing it to begin with. But just as we pulled around the corner onto Harry's narrow private road, every thought I'd ever had before that moment was erased from my mind. Instead, I was leaning forward, shocked still. In front of us was a car, bent around a fallen tree. The sedan looked as if it had run head-on into the trunk, knocking the tree down on top of it. Miss Hugo? Nick said. I see it, I told him, not wanting him to confirm that it really was in front of us, that it wasn't merely an optical illusion. He pulled over to the side of the road. I heard the scrape of branches on the driver's side of the car as we parked. I froze with my hand on the door handle. Nick jumped out and ran over. I opened my door and put my feet to the ground. Nick stood to the side, trying to see if he could get one of the doors of the crashed car open, but I walked right to the front by the tree. I looked in through the windshield, and I saw what I had both feared and yet not truly believed possible. Harry was slumped over the steering wheel. Everyone sort of assumes that when faced with life and death situations that you'll panic. But almost everyone who's actually experienced something like that will tell you that panic is a luxury you cannot afford. In the moment, you act without thinking, doing all that you can with the information that you have. have. It's when it's over that you scream and cry and wonder how you got through it, because most likely in the case of real trauma, your brain isn't great at making memories. It's almost as if the camera is on but no one is recording. So afterward, you go to review the tape, but it's all blank. Here is what I remember. I remember Nick breaking open Harry's car door. I remember helping to pull Harry out. I remember thinking we shouldn't move Harry because it could paralyze him. But I also remember thinking I couldn't possibly stand by and allow Harry to stay there slumped on the wheel like that. I remember holding Harry in my arms as he bled. I remember the deep gash in his eyebrow, the way that the blood coated half of his face in thick rust red. I remember seeing the cut from where the seatbelt had sliced the lower side of his neck. I remember 2 of his teeth being in his lap. I remember rocking him back and forth. I remember saying, "Stay with me, Harry, stay with me, stay true blue." I remember the other man on the road next to me. I remember Nick telling me he was dead. I remember thinking that no one who looked like that could be alive. I remember Harry's right eye opening. I remember the way that it inflated me with hope, the way that the white of his eye looked so bright against the deep red of blood. I remember how his breath and even his skin smelled like bourbon. I remember how startling the realization was once I knew Harry might live. I knew what had to be done. It wasn't his car. No one knew he was here. I had to get him to the hospital, and I had to make sure no one found out that he had been driving. I couldn't let him go to jail. What if they tried him for vehicular manslaughter? I couldn't let my daughter find out that her father had been drunk driving and killed someone, had killed his lover, had killed the man who he said was showing him that he could love again. I enlisted Nick to help me get Harry into our car. I made him help me put the other man into the totaled sedan, this time in the driver's seat, and then I quickly grabbed a scarf from my bag. I wiped the steering wheel clean, wiped blood, wiped the seat. I erased all traces of Harry, and then we took Harry to the hospital. Jesus Christ. She has Nick drive them to the hospital. She lies about the context of it, pays off people. They go up to a hospital room. He gets treated. She's talking to Nick. She says, "Hey, you go home. Do you have a roommate?" He says, "Yes." She says, "You don't tell anybody what happened. You don't open your mouth. You don't admit to a single thing here. Don't say anything. Here's my phone number. You call me. Here's some money. Tell me what you want. Don't ever open your mouth." She promises the kid that she will kickstart his career as long as he doesn't say anything, just to call her with whatever he needs. Just as long as he just doesn't say anything. Harry dies that night in the hospital in her arms. She is devastated. She goes back to her hotel and she howls with grief for the only man that she had ever loved with meaning. She wakes up the next morning to a phone call from Nick, the driver, asks her to set him up with movies. He's like, "Hey, this is pretty much like, this is my list of demands for my silence." While angry, while depressed, while upset, she's also impressed with his, not vivacity, I guess what would that be? His aggressiveness, the shark in him. She has to respect it, right? Because that's who she is. She would have done the same thing in his position. So while heartbroken and upset, she also like respects the game, I guess, to a point, and sets him up. And so then we get a news article about how he's this like, you know, new guy in town that lands this crazy good role and is about to get really famous. And she has lost the only man that she has ever loved. In chapter 57, after Harry's death, Connor, she's now 14, gets into drugs and like promiscuous activity, a bunch of trouble, right? Just in general. And Evelyn realizes she has to get Connor out of New York. Like, they have to leave. She's not doing good here. We have to do something. And so she decides to take her to Spain. She's like, okay, I don't know what else to do. I lost the man I loved. My daughter is spiraling out of control. Celia's gonna die in a couple months. What do you do? What is she supposed to do? So she tells Connor as much. She's like, "Hey, you know, like, baby girl, I love you so much. You're falling apart. We're falling apart. We have to go to Spain. We're going with Celia. I'm gonna marry a guy named Robert. I don't actually love him." Goes on to explain this whole thing with Celia and their relationships, and like tries to tell Connor everything that's happening. I'm gonna cry. So that she's cool with going to Spain. And so the next chapter is Evelyn crying and Monique in like current day comforting her, you know, and saying like, "Hey, you know, it's okay. I admire, you know, your bravery, you opening up about this. Like, it's really, you did everything that you could to love your daughter and support her and to love Celia, and it's respectable and admirable." And Evelyn pretty much says, "Shut the F up. I don't want your pity. I don't want praise from you. Okay? In chapter 59, they all go to Spain. She marries the brother, like talked about. And slowly but surely, Connor comes back to life. And she gets really close to Robert, right? She goes to Stanford. She like really gets it together. And Evelyn realizes that she made the right choice. All said and done, this is exactly what she needed to do for her daughter to live a good life and to like get on the right track. And she continues now with the daughter going to Stanford. Robert's pretty much doing his own thing, and now it's just Evelyn and Celia. And she gets to live the life that she always dreamed. They spend every day together. She even starts speaking Spanish again, which also makes me want to cry. It's everything she ever wanted. They just get to hang out and spend time and love each other and not hide it because they're in Spain and they're away from the fame and they're old enough now that like nobody cares and they can just do whatever they want. They have all the money in the world. And they just continue to like be upset as Celia's illness gets worse and continually regret the time that they like weren't together. And it gets to a point where Evelyn says, hey, we might not be able to actually like get married legally, but we can do the same vows. And so they have a little small, quaint, like, I don't want to say pretend wedding, but that's kind of what it is. They have a pretend wedding. And from that moment forward, Evelyn refers to Celia as her wife. In chapter 60, it's 6 years later, Celia dies in Evelyn's arms. And she sobs over losing her soulmate for the last time. What do you mean? Actually, I'm just gonna read it to you. You cry with me, fucker. 6 years later, after Celia and I spent more than a decade together on the beaches of Spain, after Connor had graduated from college and taken a job on Wall Street, after the world had all but forgotten about Little Women and the French movie, and Celia's 3 Oscars, Celia Jameson died of respiratory failure. She was in my arms, in our bed. It was summer. The windows were open to let the breeze in. The room smelled of sickness, but if you focused hard enough, you could still smell the salt from the ocean. Her eyes went still. I called out for the nurse who had been downstairs in the kitchen. I think I stopped making memories again in those moments when Celia was being taken from me. I only remember clinging to her, holding her as best I could. I only remember saying we didn't have enough time. It felt as if by taking her body, the paramedics were ripping out my soul. And then when the door shut, when everyone had left, when Celia was nowhere to be seen, I looked over at Robert. I fell to the floor. The tiles felt cold on my flushed skin. The hardness of the stone ached in my bones. Underneath me, puddles of tears were forming, and yet I could not lift my head off the ground. Robert did not help me up. He got down on the floor next to me and wept. I had lost her. My love. My Celia. My soulmate. The woman whose love I'd spent my life earning. Simply gone. Irrevocably and forever. And the devastating luxury of panic overtook me again. Celia, like Harry, was buried in Forest Lawn in Los Angeles. Robert and I had her funeral on a Thursday morning. It was kept private, but people knew we were there. They knew she was being laid to rest. When she was lowered to the ground, I stared at the hole in the earth. I stared at the glossy sheen of the wood of her casket. I could not keep it in. I could not keep my true self from coming out. I need a minute, I said to Robert and Connor, and then I turned away. I walked farther and farther up the winding hillside roads of the cemetery until I found what I was looking for. Harry Cameron. I sat down at his tombstone and I cried out everything within me. I cried until I felt depleted. I did not say a single thing. I did not feel a need. I had talked to Harry in my head and my heart for so long. It felt as if we had transcended words. He had been the one to help me, to support me through everything in my life. And now I needed him more than ever. So I went to him the only way that I knew how. I let him heal me the only way he could. And then I stood up, dusted my skirt, and turned around. There in the trees were 2 paparazzi taking my photo. I was neither angry nor flattered. I simply didn't care. It cost so much. Caring. I didn't have any currency to spend on it. Instead, I walked away. 2 weeks later, after Robert and I had gone home to Spain, Connor sent me a magazine with the image of me at Harry's grave on the cover. She attached a note to the front that simply said, "I love you." I pulled off the note and I read the headline. Legend, Evelyn Hugo weeps at Harry Cameron's grave years later. Even long past my prime, people were still easily distracted from seeing how I felt about Celia St. James. But this time was different because I wasn't hiding anything. The truth had been there for them to grab if they had paid attention. I had been my truest self, searching for the help of my best friend to ease the pain of the loss of my lover. But of course they got it wrong. They never did care about getting it right. The media are going to tell whatever story they want to tell. They always have. They always will. It was then that I knew the only time anyone would know anything true about my life was when I told them directly. In a book. I saved Connor's note, and I threw the magazine in the trash. In chapter 62, she reveals that she stayed married to Robert until his death. They came to Manhattan. They worked with a bunch of charities. They spent a bunch of time with Connor. Like, he and Connor really, like, hit it off and stuff, you know what I mean? Like, he really was kind of like a father figure to her. And then after he passes away, Connor stays with Evelyn to keep her company. Evelyn continues to urge Connor to leave. She's like, hey, you have to do your own thing. You have to, be independent. I support you. I'll be okay. Connor does leave. And Evelyn realizes for the first time in her life how alone she is. And so she hires Grace, right? The maid, the assistant, the woman, whoever that Monique met in one of the early chapters and has continued to have like little interactions with throughout the book. I just haven't really brought it up because it's not super critical, but she hired Grace to keep her company. At 39, Connor is diagnosed with breast cancer. Like horrible breast cancer. Super aggressive. Dies 18 months after diagnosis. I'm so sorry if you lasted this long in the video and I'm just over here crying for the last like 20 minutes of it. Bro, this shit sucks. You think it sucks for you? It sucks for me. Yeah, so Connor dies 18 months after getting diagnosed with breast cancer, and yet again, the devastating luxury of panic comes back. So, in chapter 63, that's how my story ends, with the loss of everyone I have ever loved, with me in a big, beautiful Upper East Side apartment, missing everyone who has ever meant anything to me. When you write the ending, Monique, make sure it's clear that I don't love this apartment, that I don't care about all my money, that I couldn't give a rat's ass if people think I'm a legend, that the adoration of millions of people never warmed my bed. When you write the ending, Monique, tell everyone that it is the people I miss. Tell everyone that I got it wrong, that I chose the wrong things most of the time. When you write the ending, Monique, make sure that the reader understands that all I was ever really looking for was family. Make sure, oh my God. Make sure that it's clear that I found it. Make sure they know I am heartbroken without it. Spell it out if you have to. Say that Evelyn Hugo doesn't care if everyone forgets her name. Evelyn Hugo doesn't care if everyone forgets she was ever alive. Better yet, remind them that Evelyn Hugo never existed. She was a person I made up for them, so that they would love me. Tell them I was confused for a very long time about what love was. Tell them I understand it now, and I don't need their love anymore. Say to them, Evelyn Hugo just wants to go home. It's time for her to go to her daughter and her lover and her best friend and her mother. Tell them Evelyn Hugo says goodbye. Jesus Christ. Chapter 64. What do you mean goodbye? Don't say goodbye, Evelyn. She looks me right in the eye and ignores my words. When you put it all together into one narrative, she says, make sure it's clear that all of the things I did to protect my family, I would do every one again. And I would have done it more, would have behaved even uglier if I thought that it could have saved them. I think most people probably feel the same about their lives and their loved ones. Evelyn looks disappointed in my response. She gets up and walks over to her desk. She pulls out a piece of paper. It is old, crinkled and folded, with a burnt orange hue on one edge. The man in the car with Harry, Evelyn says, the one I left. That is, of course, the most egregious thing she's ever done, but I'm not sure I wouldn't have done the same for someone I loved. I'm not saying I would have done the same, I'm just saying that I'm not sure. Harry had fallen in love with a black man. His name was James Grant. He died on February 26, 1989. So, if you don't know what that means, that's Monique's dad. That's Monique's dad. I'm crying because I'm trying not to sob uncontrollably. I already knew the ending and I can't even contain it. Evelyn killed Monique's dad. Well, he was already dead. Evelyn staged Monique's father's death to protect her friend. We still have like 4 more chapters. This is like true reaction. If any of you fuckers who gave this a bad review, I hope you watch this and you see me cry and you realize you were wrong. This is so sad. Okay, hold on. Let me gather myself and I'll continue. I'll finish this goddamn book. Okay, I've decided YOLO. I'm just going to read you the last of these chapters because they're short and I don't care. I don't care. I need to share this. In chapter 65, here's the thing about fury. It starts in your chest. It starts as fear. Fear quickly moves to denial. No, that must be a mistake. No, that can't be. And then the truth hits. Yeah, she's right. It can be because you realize it is true. And then you have a choice. Are you sad or are you angry? And ultimately, the thin line between the two comes down to the answer to one question. Can you assign blame? The loss of my father when I was 7 was something for which I only ever had one person to blame. My father. My father was driving drunk. He'd never done anything like that before. It was entirely out of his character, but it happened, and I could either hate him for it or I could try to understand it. Your father was driving under the influence and lost control of the car. But the knowledge that my father never willingly got behind the wheel of a car drunk, that he was left dead on the side of the road by this woman, framed for his own death, his legacy tarnished. The fact that I grew up believing that he had been the one to cause the accident. There is so much blame hanging in the air, waiting for me to snatch it and pin it on Evelyn's chest. And the way she's sitting in front of me, remorseful, but not exactly sorry, makes it clear she's ready to be pinned. This blame is like a flint to my years of aching, and it erupts into fury. My body white hot. My eyes tear, my hands ball into fists, and I step away because I'm afraid of what I might do. And then, because stepping away from her feels too generous, I edge back to where she is and I push her against the sofa and I say, I'm glad you have no one left. I'm glad that there's no one alive to love you. I let go of her, surprised at myself. She sits back up and she watches me. You think that you giving me your story makes up for it? All this time, you've been making me sit here listening to your life so that you could confess, and you think that your biography makes up for it? No, she says, I think you know me well enough by now to know that I'm not nearly as naive enough to believe in absolution. What then? Evelyn reaches out and shows me the paper in her hand. I found this in Harry's pants pocket the night that he died. My guess is that he'd read it and it was the reason he had been drinking so much to begin with. It was from your father. So, I found great peace in my daughter knowing about the truth of me. There was an immense comfort in knowing the real her. I think I'm the only person alive who can give that to you. Can give it to your dad. I want you to know who he truly was. I know who he was to me. I say without realizing that that's not exactly true. I thought you would want to know all of him. Take it, Monique. Read the letter. If you don't want it, you don't have to keep it, but I always planned on sending it to you. I always thought that you deserved to know. I snatch it from her, not wanting to even extend the kindness of taking it gently. I sit down. I open it. There are what can only be bloodstains at the top of the page. I wonder briefly if it's my father's blood or Harry's. I decide not to think about it. Before I can even read one line, I look up at her. Can you leave? I say. Evelyn nods and walks out of her own office. She shuts the door behind her. I look down. There's so much to reframe in my mind. My father did nothing wrong. My father didn't cause his own death. I've spent years of my life seeing him from that angle, making peace with him through that lens, and now for the first time in nearly 30 years, I have new words, fresh thoughts from my father. So her father's letter. Jesus Christ. Dear Harry, I love you in a way I never thought possible. I've spent so much of my life thinking that this type of love was a myth, and now here it is. So real I can touch it, and I finally understand what the Beatles were singing about all those years. I do not want you to move to Europe, but I also know what I may not want may very well be the best thing for you. So despite my desires, I think you should go. I cannot and will not be able to give you the life that you're dreaming of here in Los Angeles. I cannot marry Celia St. James, although I do agree with you that she is a stunningly beautiful woman, and if I'm honest, I did nurse a small crush on her in Royal Wedding. But the fact remains that, though I have never loved my wife the way that I love you, I will never leave her. I love my family too much to fracture us for even a moment of time. My daughter, whom I desperately hope you can one day meet, is the reason for my living, and I know she is happiest with me and her mom. I know that she will live her best life only if I stay where I am. Angela, his wife, is perhaps not the love of my life. I know that now that I have felt real passion. But I think, in many ways, she means to me what Evelyn means to you. She is my best friend, my confidant, my companion. I admire the forthrightness with which you and Evelyn can discuss your sexuality and your desires, but that is not how Angela and I work, and I'm not sure I would want to change that. We do not have a vibrant sex life, but I love her the way that one loves a partner.
I would never forgive myself for causing her pain, and I would find myself desperate to call her, to hear her thoughts, to know how she is, every moment of every day if I was not with her. My family is my heart, and I cannot break us up, not even for the type of love that I have found in you, my Harry. Go to Europe if you believe that that is what is best for your family, and know that here in Los Angeles I am with mine, thinking of you. Forever yours, James. I put down the letter. I stare straight ahead into air, and only then it hits me. My father was in love with a man. Monique goes on to confront Evelyn, and she's like, you only reached out to me because of my father. Like, you only reached out to me so that you could die feeling at peace because you're a guilty B-word. Evelyn says, no, actually, you wrote a really beautiful piece about someone's right to die, and it was complicated, and you told it so like intellectually and emphatically and beautifully that's why I wanted to reach out to you to write my biography. Which, if you're confused or if you don't know what that means, the right to die is like pretty much like euthanasia. Like, somebody has the choice that if they are like chronically or terminally ill, that they want to end their own lives. So she wrote a piece on this. Evelyn was moved by it, and Evelyn also says, she's like, I know that I can't make up what has happened to you, what I have done to you, the impact I have had on you. You know me, you've heard my story, but you understand how much I loved my family and where I came from. I don't expect you to forgive me. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just trying to close this chapter of your life. But also, I know you hate me. And then she goes on to say, like, that's it. That's my story. You can do what you want with it. You can publish it after I'm dead. You can do anything you want. And also, I have breast cancer, just like Connor did. It's very aggressive. The very things that made me famous are also going to kill me, and I'll be dying soon anyway. So you can do what you want with this in a couple of weeks, in a couple of months when I die from cancer. Jesus Christ. So in chapter 67, Monique goes home. She's thinking about all of this, and she goes home and finds a letter from David thanking her for having the strength to end their marriage, and saying, yeah, you're right, it actually is the best idea for both of us, and thank you so much for having the strength that I didn't have to end it. And Monique realizes that, like, she wouldn't have had that strength if it wasn't for Evelyn, and she wouldn't have had the strength to stand up to her boss and assert these things, and even stand up to Evelyn herself if it wasn't for Evelyn, if it wasn't for this discussion and this, like, encouragement from this woman and setting an example. That Monique, she, I guess, just in that moment realizes how much that she's changed, and, you know, began to trust herself and believe in herself since beginning these like series of interviews with her. In chapter 68, it's the interview with Ant. Like we said, that was part of the negotiation tactic that Monique had with Evelyn. She gets there. She begrudgingly, she didn't really want to be there, but she kind of feels the need to, whatever. Again, amazed at how beautiful Evelyn is, how dressed up she is, how much she commands the room still, even at like 70 years old. She calls Monique over, and they end up taking a couple photos together for the piece. After the photo shoot, she's talking to Grace, and Evelyn has given Grace 2 weeks paid vacation to go home and visit her family in South America, I believe, somewhere. Monique is surprised by this kindness. Grace is flattered. She's like, I've never had a vacation this long before. Like, I love Evelyn so much, but she's like really, really insisting that I go. Monique realizes in that moment, Evelyn is sending Grace away so that she can have the right to die and like end her own life. Jesus Christ. But Monique keeps these assumptions, these suspicions to herself and presses on. So in chapter 69, the very last chapter of the book, Monique leaves the photo shoot and she's going home. Her mom is there to visit her, right? She gets to the train station and she is realizing Evelyn is about to end her own life. Do I stop her? Is it my place to stop her? Do I care to stop her? She's faced with this impossible moral decision for multiple reasons. 2 trains pass by and she continues to just stand there and debate on life, but eventually she decides Evelyn deserves to die with dignity, and she deserves to go out on her own terms. And so she gets on the train, she goes home. Monique gets to her apartment and cries in her mother's arms. And she's wondering if she should tell her mom the truth about her father. If the truth about her father is something that she includes in the book, in the biography. Does she talk about it? Does she mention it? Is this something that even now she has to wait for her mother to pass away to talk about? Like, what do you do? Maybe one day I'll tell her what I know. Maybe I never will. Maybe I'll put it in Evelyn's biography, or perhaps I'll tell Evelyn's side of it without ever revealing who was sitting in the passenger's seat of that car. Maybe I'll leave that part out completely. I think I'd be willing to lie about Evelyn's life to protect my mother. I think I'd be willing to omit the truth from public knowledge in the interest of happiness and sanity of a person that I love dearly. I don't know what I'm going to do. I just know that I will be guided by what I believe to be the best for my mother. And if it comes at the expense of honesty, if it takes a small chunk out of my integrity, I'm okay with it. Perfectly, stunningly okay. She goes on to ask her mom about her relationship with her father. Was he a good husband? The mom says, yeah, he used to get me chocolates, for our anniversary, for Valentine's Day, for birthdays, all the time. Like, anytime he could find. Like, he was very romantic. And Monique is like, okay, was he passionate? Like, did you feel, like, fulfilled in your marriage? Like, was there whatever? And the mom goes on to say, like, no, it wasn't really anything like that. He was just, like, he was my best friend. I was just very fortunate to find a companion like your father, to find that kind of soulmate. When you dig just the tiniest bit beneath the surface, everyone's love life is original and interesting and nuanced and defies any easy definition. And maybe one day I'll find someone I love the way that Evelyn loved Celia. Or maybe I might just find someone the way that my parents loved each other. Knowing to look for it, knowing there are all different types of great loves out there is enough for me for now. There's still much I don't know about my father. Maybe he was gay. Maybe he saw himself as straight but in love with one man. Maybe he was bisexual or a host of other words, but it doesn't really matter. That's the thing. He loved me, and he loved my mom, and nothing I could ever learn about him now changes that. Any of it. The driver drops us off in front of my stop, and I grab my mother's bag. The two of us head inside. My mother offers to make me her famous corn chowder for dinner, but seeing that I have almost nothing in the refrigerator, agrees that ordering pizza might be best. When the food comes, she asks if I want to watch an Evelyn Hugo movie, and I almost laugh before realizing that she's serious. I have an itch to watch All of Us ever since that you told me you were interviewing her, my mom says. I don't know. I say, not wanting to have anything to do with Evelyn, but hoping my mom will talk me into it because I know that on some level I'm not ready to truly say goodbye. Come on, she says for me. The movie starts, and I marvel at how dynamic Evelyn is on screen. How it is impossible to look at anything but her when she's there. After a few minutes, I feel the pressing urge to get up and put my shoes on, knock on her door and talk her out of it, but I repress it. I let her be. I respect her wishes. I close my eyes and fall asleep to the sound of Evelyn's voice. I don't know when exactly it happens. I suspect I made sense of things when I was dreaming, but when I wake up in the morning, I realize that even though it is too early yet, I will, one day, forgive her. Yeah, that's cool. That's so cool. I'm not even, genuinely laughing. I'm just trying not to sob. This book is so sad. I really thought I could get through it. You know what I mean? Maybe a third time reading it, fourth time reading it for this. I'd be like, oh yeah, I'd be totally cool with this. I could totally just read it and not feel bad. No, I do. I feel so deeply. This is so sad. I thought it was beautifully told. I thought it was a great story. I don't know why people don't like it. I say that as if it doesn't have a 4.4 or whatever on Goodreads. I feel like this is a genuinely well-loved book. But I have seen a lot of people push back that this is Taylor Jenkins Reid's worst book. If you think that, tell me if you have one by her that's better. This is the only book of hers that I have read. I've never read anything else by her. I think because I'm not emotionally okay enough to sob this hard over a book, but I am. I love feeling. I love crying. If you're new to my channel, hey, I love sobbing. I love ugly crying over books in a good way. I don't like the ones that traumatize me and make me feel icky, but I love the ones that make me feel something, right? I love things that make me feel. I think that's the reason that I love poetry so much. But yeah, if you have another Taylor Jenkins Reid book, please recommend it. This was so good. I made some commentary throughout. Whether I kept it or I cut it, I don't know. But there's a lot of commentary in this book about race, about, gender identity, or about sexuality, about, forgiveness and growth and change and owning who you are. accepting who you are, being proud of who you are and who you present to the world, and how those are different things, or they can be. And it's just hard. The world's hard. Being who you are outside of the traditionally accepted is very difficult. Owning who you are outside of the traditional norm and accepted is very hard and very brave. And I'm proud of you if you are that, and if you rep that, and you're strong, and I love you, and I support you. And it's a hard world to be in if you're different from whatever the quote-unquote norm is, or what the expectation is. It's very hard to break those molds and to like openly be different. So, I don't know, man. If you are that, if you fall into that category, I believe in you. I love you. I support you. I hope you stay safe. I hope you feel loved in your day-to-day and you find a community in which you feel supported in. And I don't really have anything else to say other than that. You guys are great. I love you guys so much. I love making these videos. I love ugly crying on camera. It reminds me that I'm alive. And yeah, comment, like, subscribe, leave book recommendations if you have them. And I will see you on Monday with a review of Wuthering Heights, and on Thursday with a review of something else that you guys vote on. Go ahead and vote on my poll. It's in the posts tab on my profile, or you might see it pop up if you're subscribed to me. I deleted the poll last week. If you're at the very end of my video, you can hear this. Last week, I posted a poll that contained a couple of different books. The book for Serpentine Valentine was trending. Like, that was the one that was, like, projected to win. And I realized that that book has a very limited number of reviews. And I came to this understanding of myself and of my channel that while I would speak mostly positively about that book and I would recommend it to people, I don't know if I want to get in the habit of reviewing books from small authors, because I don't want to shit on small authors, and I don't want to... Those are the people who are more likely to actually see my videos. Those are the people who are more likely to actually be impacted, and I don't want to negatively impact or crap talk people who are just trying to have fun and live life. I would much rather go after or talk about books that are already commercially doing well, or like famous authors, where it doesn't feel as important that I'm just some random woman on the internet yelling about it. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I felt weird and I felt icky. Even now, I feel weird and I feel icky. I don't know, man. I don't know. Contextually, if you happen to be wondering. That's what happened. That's why the poll disappeared. If you didn't see one this week, that's what it was. So this next week, I'll have something up, hopefully. Hopefully I actually mean it this time and I'll stick to it. And then I'll stick to doing books that have at least like 50,000 ratings on Goodreads, I think is going to be like my criterion for that. We'll see. But yeah. So again, thank you guys so much for watching this video, especially if you got to this point. I love you. I appreciate you. You all are wonderful. And whatever the next one is, I will see you in that video. All right. Stay safe. Stay cool. Read some books. Do good. Be more. Goodbye.